It's Friday. We lived through another week. Good morning, kids. I have an announcement to make right off the bat. Breaking news. Zack Snyder will meet with James Gunn and Netflix and Disney or Warner Brothers all to discuss expanding the Snyderverse on Netflix on February 30th. So we will find out then, kids, what is going on.
Tom, this is not April's Fool's Day.
I know. February 30th, we will learn.
Yep, that makes total sense.
Script got it already. But anyway.
Very good. Yeah.
There we go.
There you go. My God.
Sorry, Snyder kids. I didn't mean to get you all excited.
Oh, it just means they can't read the calendar.
Yep.
So all of you who are right now down voting, smash that like, help share the stream. It's Friday. We got a live one here today. Let's just put it that way. We're off to a good start here.
Add the survey. Do we keep Tom or not?
I'm sorry, Aaron. That was hilarious. You can, because that made Script laugh. If I can make Script laugh, then I know it's good. Because he don't laugh at nothing.
Well, I think that's usually have on a nerve right there. So.
And even Andre laughed. Come on. It took him a minute, but he finally got it, and then he laughed. So
yeah, but Script Doctor laughed at Mount Etna.
So what's wrong with that?
Etna was hilarious.
It was hilarious.
We also have joining us, of course, the boss man, Andre. How you doing?
Greetings, everyone. I'm good. I'm a little bit chronologically confused since today is obviously April 1st somehow, but other than that, it's Friday. More of us have seen Quantumania, so now we just have to sharpen our knives and everything, and we can discuss a little bit more.
The only YouTuber that wears a wing nut for a hat.
See, that's the thing, though. Everybody expects something on April Fools. That's why February 30th is the gift that keeps on giving.
That's why you have me. Because I make those kinds of deep observations.
Deep thoughts with Paul Chato.
With Paul Chato.
Also perfect on a Friday.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Not just me.
So keep introducing Tom. Quit wasting time.
Well, I love all the people that are, Tom's not funny. Well, we know who the Snyder fans are in the chat. Anyway, Script Doctor's also here. How you doing, Script?
I'm doing fantastic. Did a lot of writing this morning. I've actually been up since 4 a.m. writing. Oh, I got that same air compressor.
Yeah, well, it's the one way to get high cheap.
Whippets it is.
They won't let me get them anymore. I'm kidding, of course.
Don't do that at home, kids.
Yeah, don't do that at home. Also joining us this morning from the Great White North as well, call me Chato himself. Paul, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing extremely well. I'm just busy.
I loved your skit.
You mean Dad handing down his...
It was, I actually laughed out loud quite a few times. Culture is also here.
Yeah,
how you doing, Culture Casino?
Hi, everybody. Hello. Happy Friday.
Speaking
Why
of...
Why are you talking like you're trying to seduce my audience?
Talking about not doing it at home, I went to a friend's cottage many, many years ago when Johnny Carson was still on the air, and this kid his face was just one big scab. And I went, what's happened here? He says, oh, I'm okay. Well, I was watching the Johnny Carson show, and he was doing this trick where he put some lighter fluid in his mouth and then spat it out at a match, and then you shot out flames out of his mouth, and he told us not to do it at home. And so I tried it, but up in here at the cottage, we didn't have any lighter fluid, so I got the gas out of the outboard.
Oh, shit.
And I put that in my mouth, and then lit a match, and it exploded so quickly. I sucked it back in. I'm laughing at this poor guy whose face is just scab, and and it was really stupid, and oh boy, wow, went to the hospital, and I went, well, there you go, Northern Ontarians, folks.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh boy,
I didn't have lighter fluid, so I thought I'd use outboard gas, like it's the same thing.
Yeah. Like one flammable liquid is very much like another. Is the logic behind that?
Well, yeah, they're very, very different properties. So.
Very different.
But he thought it was funny. He thought it's a great story. I can tell people. I have no eyebrows left.
Yeah, this is true.
Anyway,
how did he recover reasonably, or were there too many third-degree burns?
It was fairly surface. It was mostly the return of his eyebrows that
Mostly second. Okay, so mostly second degree then. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I think I saw that safety video as a kid.
With that one, don't put gasoline in your mouth.
Yeah.
That'd been a hell of an industrial to make, wouldn't it?
I think there was even a song for it.
And the thing
Don't
is,
put
he
the
said,
gas in your mouth.
I wanted a really big flame. So it's the first time he ever did it. He didn't put just like a little bit and then tested it. Right? He said, I wanted a really big flame, like from Kiss. So I put like everything in my mouth. Like,
could have got the equal effect with just some alcohol, man.
Real gasoline.
well, thank you, Maverick Christian.
Yes, we have a super chat right off the bat that says, Chato, I loved your skit. Literally laughed out loud.
There you go.
It was fun to do. It was actually my test version to see whether all the green screening would line up. It wasn't intended to go live, but
You did better than Back to the Future 2 did.
And I used the Jackson technique for shrinking adults, and it was fun.
I was actually impressed with how not only did you convince me of the eye lines and stuff like that, but I fell into the whole idea of it, and the whole thing was kind of hilarious. And
I have a trick for doing my eye
job.
line stuff. Thank you. I have a trick.
Is it a green ball?
No, I will not reveal my trick.
Oh. Is it a blue ball?
No, it involves nipples.
Are there any balls at all?
Oh, he makes his wife come out there and
It's a poster of Raquel Welch.
Whoa.
Oh.
Yeah, I saw lots of those the other day. What a beautiful woman.
Yeah. What a loss.
Well, we were talking about that. I was like, I'm curious. I wonder if she has been on more posters than anybody else in history.
Suzanne Summers, Brooke Shields,
Farrah Fawcett.
Yeah, but she's got years on them. That's the thing. Like, you got to stop and remember.
And she also has some much more iconic imagery.
Oh, that's right.
Before we move on with that, I do not believe we completely finished introductions, although one would think so.
Yeah, we did actually.
Yeah, we did.
I was. Tom was complaining because I was seducing the audience talking.
That's right.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Seducing the audience, then Cultured Casino.
Stop seducing my audience.
On with the show.
We're good. Let's go.
Is
Even
any
if they're
modern
turning on me, I
actress
don't care.
allowed to look like Raquel Welch anymore?
I wish they did.
I mean,
Yeah.
can we even talk about it and say I found her sexy? I mean, can we say that?
We're
anymore?
You can
misogynistic.
say
if we
it,
do.
but you'll be cancelled afterwards.
and that runs contrary to the fact that we still have the AVNs in Vegas, and there's still an industry that is adult oriented in nature that displays people's physical appearance in the most detailed of ways. So I just all that stuff just makes me laugh. I'm like, you can't set these standards and try to align them, and say that people can't be attracted to other people when that's purely what you're selling in those circumstances. So just
it's too bad. And she was a talented singer too. She had a Broadway show where she was singing, all dancing. So,
but I still think you can do it. I mean, to be fair, I mean, we still have films from time to time that are out there that display, the perfect femininity of people like Raquel Welch. So it can be done, and we just have to disregard the wailing of the minority.
Well,
That's
the
really
pop culture movies just don't like promoting femininity.
Yeah, or rather, culture. What you mean to say is that we have to ignore the wailing of the beached whales.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
But no, she was dynamite. She was great in everything that she was ever in, and just amazing.
She wasn't great in Fantastic Voyage, but it was one of her first acting gigs, I think. But I will always remember that movie fondly.
That was it had Donald Pleasance in it too, right?
Pleasance.
Plaisance.
Plaisance. That's right. That was a fun movie. Did they ever try to redo that?
I feel like they might have. I know they've done copies of the premise multiple times.
Which one?
Fantastic Voyage.
I think they
Where
might have
shrink and
once.
go
Let
inside
me
a
look.
guy's body.
Oh yeah, I've seen it. I just didn't.
Journey into
what he
Inner
said.
Space. Or was it Inner Space? What was
Inner Space is one of them.
No, Inner Space was similar but different. It's not the same.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Inner Space was intended to be a comedy. Fantastic Voyage
Yes.
just happens to be a comedy.
It happens to be.
And then there was that TV show Voyage to See What's on Her Bottom. Did I get that right?
Disney actually
No, it looks like they just had a TV show. No remakes.
Disney actually did it with two different attractions in two different separate decades.
I remember.
Yeah. Journey into Inner Space or something.
Guillermo del Toro's been working on it for like the last 30 years, though.
Oh, it's never happening then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was last updated this January, though, so I don't know how new or old this is, but yeah.
I
it
mean,
was
the
just popped up
best
here.
way to make sure that something never happens is attach Guillermo del Toro to it.
Also known as Untitled James Cameron Project. What the hell? This is the first I heard about this, but it was recently updated. I don't know when it was actually posted, though. It's on IMDb. I trust it about as much as...
I think a roller coaster ride through the human body is the Fantastic Voyage ride. No one's ever thought of that. Like here we're now going through the ulceric stomach lining, and now we're going through the first intestine.
Oh, wait, they actually did
Now the
that.
small
They
intestine,
did that in '92, like part of Star Tours had a very similar thing with Fantastic Voyage.
It was called Body Wars, and it was located in the Wonders of Life Pavilion in Epcot.
Yeah.
But
I
wasn't
actually
like
saw
a
that.
wasn't a roller coaster ride through the body, was it?
It was
No, you were just sitting in movable seats, but you looked at a giant movie screen.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it was a one of those motion theaters. Disney's really Star Tours is an attraction. It's the same vehicle on the same gimbal setup and everything, and then they just took you through the human body.
Well, that's kind of true. You didn't end up out the anus though. You went like out through a tear duct.
I'm not. I think you went out through a tear duct. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that is how it came in Fantastic Voyage. So.
That is what would get by censors. There are.
Yeah, I was gonna say you'd probably go out the anus, but anyway,
I would go through that.
You would go in.
I would say that depends on the person in question, but.
Let's see what the chat is saying.
Being shrunk down to a suppository. Okay.
Yes, I could go many places. With that
you had your chance. The God King dictator of South Africa says 2 cents can't stay tonight. Okay, that's what I think he means there.
Yes, that's what it is.
The series he sent. He says the series could be the greatest thing since sliced bread, but Kurtzman has left the franchise and creatively dead, ended, and can't continue. It all has to go back to season 5, back to 05 to save the IP, or it dies. Look, and I know there's a lot of people that feel this way, and we're going to get on this topic here in a little bit, more specifically.
He's talking about Picard, right?
Yeah. And I know there's been a lot of ruckus in the community, especially between 2 specific YouTubers.
Well, one.
Yeah. Well,
let's
just say one who thought it was let's just say one who thought it was fun and games and the other one who's taking it way too seriously. That's the way I'll put it. And then we got Bamagrand who said, "Hail to all, Andre and Tom. I will attend the ATL Comic Con next week. Yes. Any problem if I shamelessly shill about Midnight's Edge in the Morning to William Catt? Oh, please do. William Zabka and Ralph Altmacci. Well, tell William and Ralph that we have.
You guys made.
I was just going to say, tell him about our ultimate documentary that nobody watches. And that'd be awesome. And yes, please do pass on my email.
Martin,
you got my address. Yeah.
Is Martin Cove there? If Martin Cove is there, then let him know that we are huge fans of Project Shadow Chaser and would love to talk to him about that.
Wow.
And
well, actually, I got his son's email. You didn't, I've been talking to him a couple times trying to.
Because that would certainly get his attention, because that is one action movie in which he has to steer the hero role. Basically, he's the Bruce Willis and the Schwarzenegger of that movie.
Is it the William Catt from Greatest American Hero? Is that who they're referring to here?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
That was a fun TV show, at least in the first year.
I loved it. Thought it was great.
Yep, me too.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with it.
It
Yeah.
kind of the Ms. Marvel should have been that.
Yeah, feel free to pass on our
Give him
email.
my blood type too while you're at it. Seriously. Like, no. Actually, whatever
His
you want to
blood
give him,
type is
please
Taco
do.
Bell.
Exactly. You know the stuff that comes in the packets? That's my blood. No. I'm kidding.
Mild sauce.
Yes. Well, depends on my mood.
Mild sauce.
But yeah, no, William Catt also I'm a huge fan of. Of course, like Greatest American Hero and all the other stuff he's done. Yeah, so definitely tell them all hello. But Ralph Macchio and William Zabka, that'd be great. Because nobody's seen our documentary, which I literally put blood, sweat, and tears into. Gonzalo Bergali is gifted 5 Midnight's Edge memberships. Thank you so much. And then we've got Matthew W. says, I don't care if Picard is good, Trek is dead. Okay,
Yes.
well, like I said, we're going to talk about this real soon. Mr. Tickle Trunk says, push that thumbs up button. Yes, please do that. We'd appreciate that. Speaking of thumbs up, did you guys see that Disney quietly dropped that Little Mermaid spot they were supposed to drop at the Super Bowl the other day, and it was getting ratioed to hell?
Ratioed hard. It was like it was downvoted like 187K to 25K a couple days ago. I don't know where it is now, but it was rough.
I'm sure it's worse than that now. I'm sure they've turned off comments too. I haven't even checked in.
Oh yeah,
And
why
it looked
would they-
bad.
Why would they leave comments on something like that?
It
became
was funny.
The CGI looks horrible.
Well,
It's
the
a
comments
film.
were amusing. I love the part, because like everybody's adding their little comments. I love the part where Ariel, does something that obviously isn't done in the film. It's so funny. Everybody was just filling up the comments boxes. So while last time I checked on it, it was full of that. So
We'll have to go back and see one of
They
these
they
days,
should
but-
have done it. The Littlest Mermaid versus Predator,
yeah,
Oh yeah,
and underwater though. See, that would have been really cool.
yeah.
Yeah, we've never had a water predator.
No, this is what I'm saying. Like
See, this is why you left too soon, Paul.
This is-
We
I
need
got
ideas
good
like
ideas.
this.
no one listens to my ideas.
Can you imagine
Littlest
the figures
Mermaid,
we could sell?
Predator. It's a
Dude.
killer.
How about like an underwater scooter like from Bond?
Kids
Where,
love
like,
toys they
oh.
can play with in the tub.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Coach has got it. Yeah, you got the underwater scooter.
Yeah.
That's right.
He's got scuba gear. You got 10 different variations. I can see it happening.
Just
now.
imagine the flowing dreadlocks.
Yeah.
It'd be friggin' amazing.
It'd be
And
amazing.
Six says that the comments are still up.
Yeah, I see that they are still up. So I would imagine that they're somewhat curated, though.
And as always, you know what? I do feel for the actors that take these roles that, they're happy to work. And I'm sure she's a marvelous singer. I think I actually saw a YouTube video of her singing. She's
Halle Bailey.
Halle
Yeah,
Bailey.
she's got a great voice, but that's
Yeah, nothing wrong with her voice.
No, and but she's. I just hope that people don't direct their anger towards her. It drives me nuts.
Well, here's the
She's
thing,
just
Paul.
doing a
It's
job.
it's never usually. Here's the thing, and this kind of goes back to the Rose Tico thing. People think that when we talk about these characters and the choices that the creators take, they think we're referring to the actor themselves sometimes when that's not the case.
Well,
Obviously,
and I'm
we
not
try-
talking about. I'm
try
not
to go
talking
out of
about
our
us.
way.
Commenters will descend into
Well, yeah.
very bad places.
Yeah, but we can't control commenters.
No.
This is
No,
yeah,
but
this
we
is
are
the same-
told. No, but we're told over and over again that we are the generators of all this hate. And I go, well, I can't control my kids. Like, how am I going to control commenters?
Look, I cannot take the responsibility for your kid being a fucking racist. Okay, like I will not.
We're told continuously we are, and we're causing.
And I get
harm.
that. And this is like the same debate I've been having about spoilers the last 2 days on Twitter,
yes,
right? It's like, it's not my responsibility, and I'm not going to sacrifice, because there's idiots who think that people should be prosecuted over spoilers. It's like, I'm sorry, if you think I'm going to sacrifice my freedom of speech and expression over some fucking movie spoilers, then you're sadly mistaken.
Don't read my tweets.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm like,
and don't stay off they just don't like being told to stay off the internet for 2 minutes. But anyhow, that's neither here nor there. It's just the same thing. with his other shit though. It's just get over it.
And that's really one of my main bugaboos of Picard, but that's
We're gonna get
TNG.
into that. That's an
Ooh.
interesting conversation. I have a feeling it's gonna be. Let's see here. We've got Waltman who says, so based on the THR article, they're slowing down on Marvel but ramping up on Star Wars production. So they're going with fast and cheap for Star Wars, huh? Well, actually, let's get into this now. This is a good spot. Actually, why don't we just cut into it now? Let's start here because this is kind of the main topic of the day. We were asked this a few times last night on Meet, and I promised our viewers that we'd get into it this morning, especially because I want to hear Andre's take on this. Are they really ramping up with Star Wars, Waltman? I got to ask you because I don't know about that. I just saw, because I didn't hear anything about the Acolyte and some of the other projects that had been announced, but we are still getting, I think it was 3 projects that the article said, and the Marvel side of things is where I thought it was kind of more interesting. So let's get into that, Andre. So what's going on here with this Marvel cutbacks?
Yeah, well, basically, here we have to go 1 week back in time to the earnings call, which Bob Iger headed. And what surprised me is that so many people missed the obvious thing. I did a whole video about it. If you go back and check the previous Bob Iger themed video, that shouldn't be difficult.
Oh,
it was the second last scripted video we put out, where basically Bob Iger said that, well, he tried to put a nice spin on it, but basically, since they are losing so many Disney Plus subscribers, of course, the loss that they are in India, but everywhere else they're stagnated. And the content on Disney Plus is so unbelievably expensive to make. They simply can't justify it anymore, which is why they are cutting $3 billion from the total content creation budget. And
I wanted to catch you before you got to that, Andre. I wanted to catch you before you got to that, because funnily enough, I wanted to ahead of time, but now it's a little too late. But about 2 weeks back, I think it was roughly, we on Mead, we had read the article where they had talked about Disney being the tops at the box office last year for revenue. But Mikey and I sat down and we did the math between the revenue and how much the movies actually cost. And the funny thing is we had factored somewhere around $3 billion is what they roughly lost. That's why I think that number is ironic.
Yeah. And that is exactly right. So $3 billion, I mean, that's a lot of money. I mean, you can get a whole face worth of Marvel movies for $3 billion. And that is what they're going to cut. In reference then to this Hollywood Reporter article, what is going to be cut is Marvel content, specifically Disney Plus series. Obviously, because the ones on Phase 4, they didn't work out. Because if they did, Disney Plus would be growing instead of contracting or slowing down. And it has. So that basically means that from the previous earnings report to the current one, what happened in between those? She-Hulk. What did not happen in between those? Any kind of growth in subscribers. And the whole justification for all the money put into that various programming is that it's supposed to grow the user base for Disney Plus, and it's obviously not working. The Marvel series released in Phase 4, they flopped, all of them. None of them really did anything to grow the audience. Maybe the first one did. Maybe that WandaVision, that there was some excitement there, but that excitement waned really, really quickly. And this was also like one of the takeaways. The only series that are even upcoming that they think there is any kind of excitement for is Loki Season 2 and Secret Invasion. Everything other than that, like Echo, for instance, it could be delayed till next year before we even see it. And that's obviously because they're not spending all that money that's needed to get it out in reasonable time in post-production. That's one place they're making cuts, and maybe there's other series that's going to be cut altogether. Anyway, so going forward, after the ones already in production, there's going to be fewer Marvel Disney Plus series, because obviously the expense can't be justified in terms of subscribers. Now, Star Wars, that's a slightly different story, because Star Wars is not an overexposed brand. They may try to pretend that it is, but they actually need to ramp that up a little bit, because what have we there? Theatrically, Star Wars right now is a dead brand. That should be their first priority. And the series that have been, they haven't really worked out. Like, there was loads of excitement for Obi-Wan Kenobi, but that quickly turned into The Last Jedi, and as a result, no one checked out Andor. Now, I get it. Andor supposedly is this really amazing thing, but no one watched it in the larger scheme of things. And that's kind of like why they have to ramp production up on Star Wars, because there's so little being put out, and there's such burnout there anyway. Whereas on Marvel, if anything, it's overexposed and it's backfiring that way. So that is the key takeaway from the Hollywood Reporter article, as filtrated through me, that it didn't say exactly those things, because they try to cover it up and masquerade as much as possible. Script. Am I missing something, or is that fair retelling, and what's your take on it?
Yeah, I think that's pretty obvious, is that Marvel has spent far more Disney has spent far more money, much more money on Marvel over the past few years than they have on Star Wars. So yeah, I can see them cutting back on Marvel and just reappropriating those funds to Star Wars in order to try and reinvigorate the franchise, in the hopes that because it's not as oversaturated as Marvel is, they might be able to recoup anything that they lost in the interim since The Rise of Skywalker.
I don't see anything being added to Star Wars, though, really. I think they're continuing down that road, but I mean, like, we haven't heard much movement on the Acolyte and some of these other things they've announced. Like, remember all those other series they announced besides Ahsoka and Boba Fett at that time? We haven't heard anything about any of those other shows yet, really.
Yeah, there has been
Outside
much
the
of any
animated
movement
stuff.
on the not the Mandalorian one, but the other one that features the female Mandalorian.
Yeah,
One
the
that
Rangers one, and
played by the Starbuck from whatever the heck that the Battlestar, her
the
thing. She has
Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah,
Katie Sackhoff?
that's the name, Katie Sackhoff. Apparently, her. Yeah, we haven't heard any movement on that one. Rangers is canceled because they don't have they don't have the Gina Carano character to have propped it up. I mean, it was basically going to be Paul, the Chinese actor from Kim's Convenience, and it was going to be Ming-Na Wen, I think it was, in that eventually, and then they had to rework everything.
Yeah, as I said, because Gina Carano was what you might call a load-bearing pillar. Without her, the whole core structure collapsed.
Yeah, exactly. She was going to help that show and then get her own right after, and that was Grief Cargo is also supposed to be part of the Rangers for a spell as well, I think. But yeah,
Grief, yeah, it's a real shame, and of course the Sackhoff thing would have been a lot of fun to dive into as well. Instead, we're going to get a Let's Get High Republic show from Headland.
Yeah, if we are getting that, then, because honestly,
evidently it's shooting.
Yeah, they are shooting in the UK. That is correct.
Oh well, then
that's what Six said. That's what I had on screen here this whole time. Yeah. Six sent me here. It says, despite the possibility of landing his first Oscar nomination, James Friend had other priorities the afternoon of January 24th, namely sleep. The UK-based cinematographer is trying to get some rest while in the midst of 3 weeks of night shoots for the upcoming Star Wars series Acolyte.
Well, then Disney just blew a whole lot of money they're never going to see again on that one.
Well, and here's the thing: you know how deep that shooting schedule goes into this. It goes into spring. They won't be done until April, possibly shooting that. So, and then then it's all post. Now, tentatively they leaked out there that they might have the Acolyte out there in August, but there's no official set.
There's no way that's going to be done by August.
Nah, and if they're if it actually stays at the 10 episodes that they were claiming it was going to be, there is no way they'll get that done in post, unless. And again, they're talking about all the. They're using a lot of practical effects on the Acolyte set, a lot of puppeteering and stuff like that, which I like, of course, because that's my jam. But
Mandalorian was also successful for them, so I'm sure they're going to keep trying to get a successful Star Wars series. What this has
but
more to do with was Marvel's part. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Walter.
No, I was just going to say, but let's get High Republic is not the way to go about that. So, we'll have to see. So,
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing with you there. I'm just saying that I don't see any like major like jump in Star Wars production though at all. Like, I mean, it's if anything, it's stayed the same. Marvel's what's being hit here, and we know why, right? I mean, we've been talking about this for weeks now.
They've been losing money left and right.
Yeah, they've been losing money left and right, and that's kind of where that $3 billion come in. When Mikey and I were doing the math, was majority of that was the amount of money they spent on those Marvel movies, and the amount of money they didn't make at the box office, right? Because it's pretty clear that the only one of the movies that probably nearly broke even was probably Doctor Strange at the end of the day, if you really sit down and do the math. Because these movies have to make around 3 times their budget, and all those movies that came out last year were in the $200 to $250 million budget range. And that's just of what we know. And that's not even including P&A and all that other crap.
Right. Well,
Right.
and you always throw another $100 million at that minimum at least. I mean, Disney over promotes a lot of stuff, so it's just.
And we're hearing that between Avatar, they spent over $450 million, which yes, some of that will be amortized over the sequels. But now we're hearing they spent over $300 million on Indiana Jones.
Oh yeah.
Like they better look. Indiana Jones has always been big, but it's never been big to the point where I see it grossing $1 billion big.
No.
That was just hip replacement surgery.
Oh boy, hey now.
I know who the
Very
fuck I
expensive
am.
hip replacement surgery. So I hope
Actually, you're
I have
not wrong.
got-
He did get his leg. Did he break his leg on this one, or is his arm on this one? I can't remember. Shoulder. Yeah.
This is what you get for not having government-run healthcare in the U.S. $300 million shoulder replacement. That's what it costs.
Well, Harrison Ford is probably literally the $6 million man by now, with as much as he's.
Yeah, if he would stop crashing his plane.
But yeah, so
I think it's rather
he
the
does-
$600 million.
He
Yeah,
does have a
$600 million
series, with Siegel on Apple TV.
Oh yeah, he does. It's a
Yeah.
comedy series.
And I'm going to look for it. Siegel's
Shrinking?
usually pretty good.
Shrinking.
Yeah.
Shrinking, yes. And yeah, I think Script Doctor's trying to make me get one of those Apple things, because he sent me this trailer last night for the
Hey,
Tetris movie too.
I got a new.
Did you guys see the trailer for that?
I got
yet?
a new phone, and so I get 3 months worth of Apple TV. So I'm going to try to do.
There you go. Well,
get
you
all
can
of
probably watch that Tetris movie then.
I
Yeah,
watched
you
the
can,
Tetris movie. It was on YouTube. You're
No,
talking about the
they've
same one?
got they got a new one coming on Apple.
Taron Egerton is in it.
Yeah, the trailer with Taron Egerton about getting Tetris on the Nintendo.
Yeah, because
Well,
of the
they
whole
doc-
rights
documentary
issues
on
with
it.
Russia. Yeah, they've done documentaries. Yeah, but this is an actual movie.
I
like
mean,
a
I-
documentary.
Dramatization of it.
Yeah, someone just sent me a link to it. It's great. I mean, yeah, it would probably be a good dramatized movie. There's I think it's a German movie where Google ripped off German technology for the live mapping. I can't remember the name of that series, but it was really good. That was really well done. If you're a nerd, then you will enjoy it. And I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, I mean, Tetris looks interesting, and I hope that I wish that movie was coming to theaters. But anyway, so yeah, this is the Disney business going on. Andre, did you want to add or subtract anything from what we discussed so far, or ask us anything that you want us to get into on the subject at hand? Or?
Chato, are you? Do you think that them cutting $3 billion is going to help them grow Disney Plus, fix Marvel, all of that?
Well, it's
Like
from
needs
my
and not so
perspective, it's
So-
interesting which direction Iger came to solve the financial problems and which direction Gunn came. So I preferred the Gunn methodology, which let's assume that Warner and Disney both have financial issues. Gunn talked about, sorry for the pun, but he was talking about reloading the gun. So you could see in the properties that he was talking about that they were already less expensive, and you just got the sense that he was going to curtail costs by having good, tight scripts. That was the feeling. That was the subtext of what he was talking about. Iger revealed the subtext, which might have been fine for a a financial call, but was not particularly interesting to the public. And he had nothing not a lot to talk about with regards to the creative direction of Disney. I would have done what Gunn did, gone to the creative team and say, okay, what are we going to be producing for the next little while that's going to excite people, that from a subtext point of view will deal with our financial problems, but move things forward. Everything Iger talked about does not bring people to the movies. We're cutting. We're going to reduce budgets. We're going to do less. Come on up.
At the same time, though, and this is the real interesting thing, he keeps talking about their amazing creatives.
Yes,
and
but
how
not
they're going to solve everything. Going to give power back to the creatives.
Means nothing.
Fool, don't you see? The creatives are the cause of this. It's a compromised creatives.
You sure he's not just playing lip service this time, Andre? And I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. I agree with you, obviously, 110%.
I think he's being charitable by calling them creatives, because if they were creative, I mean, the company would be a little bit more successful than it is right now. Wouldn't be going through this tragedy, because
that's what I'm saying. Like, at this point, you got to imagine that he knows, like, look, he's like, he was probably like, when I left the company, Star Wars was in rough enough shape, but now I come back and Marvel's all fucked up. This is basically like the equivalent of, dad goes away on a business trip and everything's fine and dandy when he leaves, for the most part, outside of one kid's getting some bad grades. Then he comes back and his daughter's knocked up, the one that was the straight A student.
But
you know what I mean? Like,
he never left. Iger never left.
He didn't leave.
I know he never technically left, and he went away on a business trip. That's my point exactly. It's like he was still there, but he wasn't.
And watched the house from the neighbor's yard.
Well, yeah, you're probably right there.
He certainly agreed with the wokeifying of all the Marvel product. He was there.
And again, my point is that the Marvel thing was his fault to begin with. So yeah, before he left, he forbade Marvel from going to see their boyfriend, which caused this whole thing to begin with. I'm not arguing that point, but what I'm saying is he has nothing left now.
Who is working at Disney that is boyfriends? What? Oh, never mind.
They all do, and they have to ask their husband's permission.
Oh,
but
wow.
Tom is not wrong.
And then that all depends on what Kathleen Kennedy says. But no, I think Dark King is right here with this $2 Australian super chat. Financial discipline might help the MCU. Might. Well, that's what's going on right now over at Warner Brothers. Basically, that's the way they're sitting there going, look, what do we do? Well, the first thing they have to do is get rid of all these expensive actors. That's the first thing they've been doing, as we've seen across the board. And
kind of
how
like
much
James Gunn did, you mean?
Yeah, I was just going to say, how much you want to bet we start seeing after a couple of these movies, they start talking about recasting all these parts. We're already getting that basically with the new, younger, fresher Avengers that's being set up in this movie, and that can kind of move us on to the Ant-Man topic a little bit.
So, anyways, that's my thought. Good for Iger. He's a well-spoken executive, but I would have taken the Gunn approach as opposed to the Iger approach to, get things, because you always have to set things up for the future and get people feeling positive about what it is that you're doing. I didn't get a sense of anything positive out of Iger's Disney comments.
Yeah, culture.
Look, I mean, the company's been running downhill, ever since the installation of all the ideological sycophants that are in place. So I mean,
they're not going away.
Yeah, I'm like, if you want to decide whether or not there's lip service being paid, find out, when these people's contracts expire and if they're renewed. Because if Vicky Alonso's contract is renewed, that Marvel's lost forever at that point, because you're still going to continue down this ideologically driven hate neo-Marxism that is killing off all these properties. So
I think she just canceled her lunch with you.
That's fine.
Script, anything more to add than you already have? Or yeah, because that's kind of where I'm at, is basically what do you do when you've got Robert Downey Jr., who's going to cost you $100 million for a movie? You're
going to bring him back.
That's what they're talking about now, but is that what's going to work?
No.
Your problem right now is that you're losing money on these movies because you're already spending too
Are
much.
they
and that's my point I was gonna get
really
to, yeah.
talking about bringing him back?
They're going to put him on a D- show. They're going to put him on Disney minus, and it's going to waste all that money on a dumbass show for trying to reboot some other bullshit. And you know what? If you really believe in this neo-Marxist crap, put up an A-Force movie and watch that thing tank hard. Nobody in their right mind is going to go see that POS.
Well, we're already getting the preliminary version of that with.
Oh, I know.
The Marvels, which got pushed to November, which I'm surprised that wasn't its original date anyway.
You know why they pushed it.
But I have a feeling I know why. My prediction is reshoots.
Yeah.
But that, and they don't have anything for Thanksgiving. Because I think what was in that spot before was like an untitled Pixar movie that they probably don't have.
And they have and think about it, they have 3 untitled Star Wars projects that have failed to meet their calendar too.
And I think also wasn't this. Well, when was Rogue Squadron? Was that this year or next year? That was originally supposed to be.
I think the end of this year, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to remember what was announced in 2020. So that's taken.
Weren't they also trying to do something with Riri's Iron Man and Downey?
Yeah, that is still coming.
Well, her show.
That's the Armor Wars Disney Plus.
She is
the most. I'm wondering what's going on with that because that was the one that was
person on the planet.
See, that's the one that was pushed a little off the schedule, not completely off altogether, but it was pushed off this year. That was one of the projects that we're talking about as far as Disney cutting. And I don't know if that has more to do with them. Now, if we get the news that they pushed back the Marvels, that's probably why. Because isn't she in the Marvels? Or am I wrong? Because I thought I heard because she pops up in like another movie or two before her show starts. I thought it was the Marvels.
It might be. Here's the thing. I don't care.
Yeah,
I know that's the other problem, but yeah.
They'll never put a Raquel Welch as a female Iron Man. It's got to be.
Why do we need a female Iron Man? We already have
a female Iron
Man.
Fine. Comics have been stunting like that forever.
Sure, but
yeah. Well, speaking of stunting, though, they never learn.
No, sometimes it works. Like She-Hulk in the comics was great.
Yeah. Spider-Woman has a couple of series that did very well when they launched her.
Yeah, but here's the thing. They're stunting their growth right now.
Yes.
But you also have to understand that in the comics, Iron Man, prior to the Marvel movies, I would say was second tier at
He was D-list, actually. Yeah.
In the comics.
Well, there's no argument there, but they were making movies out of every last comic property they could at that point.
No, I get it. And I've always felt that second and third tier characters make for more interesting.
Well, that may not be the case.
Iron Man because he was low risk. They could actually write him off if it failed and still continue with Marvel. That's why they used him. The fact that it blew up the way it did, they were so happy. I remember those.
Because it had gear porn.
Yes.
And yes, I'm mooing in disapproval because I hate redundant characters. Box office. Speaking of third-rate or whatever tier characters, we've got Ant-Man here who made $17.5 million last night.
So
I think this is the accumulation it's made over the last week, let's say, actually, because it opened up in various markets earlier. So, and they'll add this to the Friday box office as well. So tomorrow, whenever they say whatever amount it made, this will be added to it.
So this is more like a weeping sore.
Well, 17.5 is normally not too bad for a movie, but it's not good for a Marvel movie because guess what? This is 11 million less than Wakanda Forever opened to. And that is another Marvel film, like most of them, that had bloated opening weekends and extremely rough following weekends. And I'm going to say it like I've said it a few times now. I'm predicting now this is going to be the first Marvel movie to be knocked off the top spot its second weekend. And the hilarious part is it's going to be by a movie called Cocaine Bear.
Directed by Elizabeth Banks.
Yeah, I don't even care about that. I mean, like again, the highest compliment I can pay Ant-Man as a film is that it was in focus when I saw it at the theater.
That's what you said last night. Yeah, that was his only praise last night of the movie. I can't believe he went to see this thing.
Yeah, Culture. For those that haven't seen your earlier reviews, just reiterate what did you think about Quantumania? Obviously, it wasn't too positive. We can tell already since the focus was the highlight.
Well, I mean, overall, I'll just start there. I'm going to start with the overall score. I gave it it's 3.5 out of 10 for me, right?
Oh,
it wasn't overly offensive, although there were moments that there was clear agenda in this thing. They were a little stealthier about it, and I think script can attest to, after seeing it as well, it was clear where the edits, the reshoots fell into place.
The added humor,
the comedy beats did not land. I was completely disgusted with the fact that you could tell everything that was volume in it. The fake background, because they didn't really work on blending the bottom of the frame, you could actually see the background at times, the volume background that was in place. The CGI was muddy, and that's saying nice things about it. The probably the best composited shots were the ones where there were multiple Scotts in the Scott pyramid. They really didn't know where to focus. They wasted a wonderful character in MODOK. I mean, I can go on. The native looking lady in there, the leader of the rebellion or whatever, she looks like
barbarian, basically.
Yeah. She looks like
the one in Dungeons and Dragons.
Right. Actually, she's a dark-skinned, who's the girl that did everything first in Hollywood? Jennifer Lawrence. Yeah, she looks like a dark-skinned Jennifer Lawrence and has the same acting approach and, demeanor and everything. Yeah, she does have abs.
She has more muscles, though.
Yeah, well, maybe. But anyway, I mean, I could go on. I mean, it's costuming was fine. Practical effects, when there were some, was good. They wasted Bill Murray's character, although I thought that the scene at the end of his little vignette was good. Although, again, muddled CGI once again. Some of the concepts in this were fantastic. Everything was undercooked character development. I mean, I'm just giving you like off the top of my head.
Yeah.
So
Not to mention the other stuff you were talking about last night, like the socialism aspect and all that.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, and again, while I can't, I said that, talking about socialism or starting to talk about socialism in a positive way, technocracy conversation, all of these other elements, the stuff about revolution and everything else that Andre was mentioning the other day when we were here on Wednesday talking about the film. Yeah, that stuff is right there, front and center. There's nothing to mute it at all. But again, I mean, all these buzzwords are going to make their way into these films because, as Iger said in the town hall right after he took back control of the company, they're not going to step away from this ideological bent that they're on. They are doing the exact opposite thing that Walt would have allowed to have happen to the company, which is turning into a socialist, communist, neo-Marxist propaganda machine. And that's all this is. This film is actually not as blatant about it. Again, it's more subtle. But beyond all of that, gosh, I'm going to say a bad word and I don't usually say that. I said it last night. I'll say it again. The only thing that made this film somewhat positive is that the director of the film didn't walk into the theater down my row, which was empty, and actually shit on my chest during the course of the film.
That would be a great log line for an ad.
Yeah.
There you go.
That is
so good. I can walk down the aisle and crap on your chest.
Yeah. Full quote. Rex Reed.
Rex Reed. Oh yeah, Rex Reed.
This is the highest praise I have ever heard.
Very good.
At the very least, the director did not take a dump directly on Culture Casino's chest. Well, there is that, I guess.
I don't think Peyton Reed's the type of guy that would never do that anyway. So
I was in a massive theater.
Honestly, I feel bad for Peyton Reed right now in this situation. But go ahead.
Ask that. Like, how much of this movie really is his, and how much of it has been corporatized?
Look, we can't confirm anything other than there were reshoots done, but from what we had heard, Peyton was not happy about this.
He's not an incompetent director.
Because that's what we had told, and we had been, and I would be willing to believe that the movie that he originally turned in was better than what we are getting now. I
suspect that also, because I got lucky enough to get a screener with via Google Drive, which unfortunately I can't access anymore. I should have downloaded it, but I didn't. And yeah, you could blatantly tell which was a reshoot, which wasn't. You can tell that some of the scenes between Paul Rudd and his daughter had potential and actually kind of did something with the relationship, but they keep on getting pulled away and pulled apart and pushed aside, and it looks like secondary scenes and things that were used for coverage were incorporated into this movie instead of actually the story, because the pacing is kind of poor, the plotting is really atrocious. There's no reason for MODOK to be in this film at all, and Kang himself he's inconsistent. The actor, I don't think, has the range to be the type of grandiose villain that Kang is. He's far more reserved, far more close to the chest, far more stoic. That's where he shines. But when he has to lose his temper, when he has to go overboard, it's inadvertently comical. And yeah, the other part too, which is actually kind of what that did surprise me, is the fact that Hank Pym is the one that saves the day and not any of the female characters.
There were so many contrivances that at the end was
there
ridiculous.
Were, yeah.
I mean,
the ant stuff was set up because you saw that at the very beginning.
Yeah.
But it's like it just comes. They had to do flashbacks to sort of lay out the breadcrumbs, even though you could tell that those weren't intended to be flashbacks. Like they were actually doing it originally, and they just cut it out so they could do the jokes. And they're like, "Oh, we got time here. Let's go back to that and let's bring in Michael Douglas so we can re-record those bits to set it up so that people understand what the heck is going on, even though they probably had it there originally in the first place." Yeah, it was. And the other part too, which we mentioned before the show, is that the quantum realm is way too Rick and Morty, and that hurts it. Well, it's not unique. It's just strange for the sake of being strange, as opposed to being unique and interesting and creative. And that
reminded me of. Remember the negative zone in Fant 4-stick? It reminded me of that. It looked just
only
like
brighter.
that, brown and dirty. It looked just like the negative zone in that. I mean, I thought it was frightfully disappointing compared to the ideas that you got in even the first movie.
I also have started counting the number of times I get pulled out of a film when I'm watching it. And when you get past 4 or 5 now, you're on the downside of the 10-point scale, because you've eliminated my escapism. I should never be pulled out. The only thing that should pull me out of a film is if I have to get up and go to the restroom, and that's my fault.
Yeah, there's an hour of unnecessary delay to the objective of Kang and how they're going to get back. Yeah. Because here's the other part too. I understood the quest aspect. I understood Michelle Pfeiffer's role as a guide and mentor within this universe. Those ideas are actually quite fine. It's just that they milked them unnecessarily long for what it was, and it was really just trying to chew up time as opposed to progress the story. And I also think they should have better addressed, because they have the seed that Michelle Pfeiffer is actually really, really traumatized by her life living down here, and that's why she doesn't want to talk about it. And they don't actually do anything with it enough for you to really empathize with why she kept things secret at the time. Like they don't do that. They don't treat it with the maturity that it should have been treated with for us to actually care. Instead, it's really done kind of casually.
Well, honestly, Script, if you think about it, I think this film could have been about 86 minutes long.
That's a little longer than I'd expect. It's about 45, 50 minutes of real story.
Well, okay, but I mean, but see what they cut out. I think what they cut out was a lot of the stuff you were talking about between Scott and his daughter, right? I thought that
because there's a parallel between Scott and his daughter and Janet and Hope. And there's so little of Hope in there, and all the stuff of Janet is about the quantum realm as opposed to the family. But every once in a while, you get little tidbits of her about the daughter and her husband, and it's like you're sacrificing more interesting character story for.
But it's all based on a family full of secrets concept, right? Script.
Yeah. Well, it's a family full of secrets in regards to Janet's absence there.
But they're all keeping secrets. Secrets.
I can't figure out what secret Scott is keeping from Cassie, but Cassie is definitely kind of keeping secrets because she and Grandpa are
keeping secrets.
cohorts. Yeah. Well, they're keeping secrets in the sense that they want to reveal surprises. So it's not like they're trying to keep it to protect anyone. They're like, oh, we got this exciting thing we want to show you. It's just not ready yet. Like that's their justification for it.
Okay.
Yeah, plus he bails her out when she's arrested.
Yeah.
Before we move on here, culture. There was one thing I wonder in particular, because Script obviously wasn't too impressed with Kang. Like I also wasn't too impressed, but the professional critics who were at the advanced screening, they couldn't praise Kang enough. So I'm curious, where do you stand on this? Were the critics right, and are we completely wrong, or was Kang maybe not all that?
I think that the praise that's being heaped upon Jonathan Majors is being done because they absolutely need Kang to work for this entire phase to work, and he doesn't work. Backstage Script mentioned something like he was being too reserved, or he didn't have the depth to play the version of Kang he was playing, regardless of whether
I think his skill set is not on the side. It's not best utilized on the side of the fantastical, great, crazy, extravagant villain. I think he's more like a methodical. Like he was very chilling in his non-temper tantrum throwing moments,
right?
And I dug that. But it's like, yeah, why are you going into the crazy throwing a temper tantrum, shooting energy blasts out of your hand stuff when it doesn't feel authentic to the character we've seen up until that point? Well, like, shouldn't he be more cold about his executions as opposed to so passionate and angry?
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree with you. And again, I mean, absent, additional spoilers, I'll just say that I don't really, I really don't care very much about Kang. I didn't care about him in the Loki show. I really don't care about him now. I don't care about all of the Kang we're going to get in the future. And I don't care about this prophecy that things are worse now or whatever that was being hinted at towards the end of the film. I wasn't convinced he was any better than anybody else in this film, and everybody under-delivered on everything that they did in this film. So there was no actor that I saw as a standout in any way. And I felt that at times, because this film was so disjointed, that nobody was allowed to shine at all.
Final question for both of you, actually for everyone, but especially for those who have seen the movie. The multiverse concept, the whole next phase, and maybe even beyond that, is built around the multiverse. After seeing this movie, do you think that's going to work, or have they already shot themselves in the foot? Script?
Well, multiverses and parallel dimensions are only fun if you can incorporate actual consequences.
Boom.
And the rules that they've already established at this point is that, well, you have all these multiple timelines, and we don't know which one we're actually focused on. So why do we care? What have you given us to care about this timeline and what's at stake? And that's not been established at all since they actually introduced it in Endgame.
The problem is you can pull any Deus Ex Machina thing out of your ass and use it whenever you need it. And the challenge with any movie that is based on such an incredible amount of bombast is to bring it down to a human level. And that's a challenge. And I always use as a barometer My Dinner with Andre and Sideways, two small movies that kept me interested from beginning to end without dropping a thing. And Sideways actually had some really scary moments in it. And if none of these movies, with all the special effects and all the bombast, can hold my attention in the same way, then it's a major failure.
Yeah.
Why would My Dinner with Andre, two people just sitting at a table for, I don't know, hour and a half talking? Well, for me at least, why is that an interesting experience that I would see again and again? And this I'm not even going to go see.
It's frustrating. I mean, in Script hit on the thing that I was always going to have a problem with multiverse stuff because there are no stakes. There was always going to be a challenge. But unfortunately, everything Disney does now, and I'm not talking specifically about Marvel, I'm talking about everything, There are no stakes involved whatsoever, and ultimately there's no progress made in anything that they do. Did you feel like the story progressed for you in this film? Overall, did you feel like this was the beginning of a new quote unquote phase? No. Did you feel like you got to know these characters any better? No.
Well, Marvel's had a bad guy problem for a while since Thanos. Look at Black Widow. The antagonist in Black Widow was terrible,
forgettable too.
And gender bended in the last moment in reshoots because Taskmaster was supposed to be a dude until they realized that no, wait, it has to be a woman.
Well, and again, I mean, gender, race, you can swap stuff all day long. The problem is that nobody has any depth in this universe any longer. You don't have a back. Do you know why when Tony Stark died, when Iron Man died, that was such a hard hitting moment for people? I know all of you guys know that, and probably everybody in our audience, but that was significant. It was a loss. Everybody lost there, right? Because you were so invested in that character. Point out any of the new characters that you're invested in at all. None. I have yet to find a Marvel character that I feel connected to or invested in. And it's not because they don't look like me. And it's not for any of those other superficial reasons, those immutables that they're trying to, propagandize everywhere.
Captain Briefcase in the Eternals was pretty exciting.
No, the one of the characters that I really enjoyed was Black Panther in Civil War.
Yeah,
because he had a very empathetic story, one that I could relate to. But overall, even the path that he chose and the responsibilities and the convictions he had, and his dedication, is like those are all great, admirable traits. That's a type of hero you want as a role model for kids.
That was a good movie.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, it goes down to when we got to Endgame, everything was over. In fact, I would say Civil War was the beginning of the decline. I mean, let's just
Age of Ultron was actually pretty.
It was a rough spot.
It was like a heart murmur in the pulse of Marvel.
Yeah, slight arrhythmia. but honestly, I do feel like Civil War was the beginning of the decline and Endgame was the end. And once you try to continue on from there, you're no longer telling new stories. That's the problem. They don't have new stories to tell, which speaks to what we started this whole show off with. There is zero creativity at Disney any longer, and it doesn't matter in what franchise it is. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And that's a shame because they have no excuse really, because they have decades worth of amazing stories to take from. Problem is that they went straight from the 60s to the 90s, and then they jumped straight from the 90s till 2014, 2015, when the comics really, really nosedived. So they bypassed like 40 years of comics just to get straight into the worst period possible. And this is also something that was like threatened in Quantumania and stuff, building up to like multiverses crashing together in incursions leading up to Secret War. This is a 2015, 2016 storyline. I mean, this is a storyline that came after the MCU was well on their way. The first Avengers movie was out by then. Like, the second one was out by the time they got to the drivel from the comics they're doing right now. The absolute best of Marvel's comics. All they had to do was go back to the source material. This is what I don't like about Endgame. That was the movie where they basically made the decision, all of these decades and literally thousands upon thousands of comics to draw from, we're just going to bypass them all and jump forward to the worst era of comics there has ever been.
Well, part of the problem, too, is that social justice modus operandi is to scorch earth the past. They really have no respect for it, no interest in fact, they find it offensive. That's why we're here. This is why we're here.
Yeah, and we'll see how long the audience will tolerate this, and that's a legitimate question to me. And I'm also curious, like everyone in the chat. I'm gonna set up a poll here to see exactly how many of you saw this movie. Let's see here. I saw setting up the poll here, so just keep on discussing in the meantime.
I don't have any new jokes. I've got to think. You should have told me. I could have armed myself with some new jokes.
No, it was.
What are we supposed to be vamping for now?
Yeah, no,
Just
I'm
setting up a poll to find out who has
Quantumania.
actually seen the movie or not, or is going to go.
So
see the
Paul,
movie.
did you actually try to convince your son to do the sketch with you, and he said no, so you had to sub in for him?
Yeah, that was what happened.
Wait,
No,
that wasn't his kid?
in real life. My son was very non-participatory. I don't know if I've told this story or not, but we were playing t-ball, and we had a great coach where if he didn't want to actually go up to bat, the coach would say, no, that's fine. I mean, he never yelled at any of the kids to do the manly thing, but if he was playing in outfield, he would never be ready for any of the shots towards him. He'd be sitting on the ground, just picking at the dirt. And then when we finally finished and had to have the group picture, my son refused to go on those tiered benches. So you have the team group picture at the very end. And I said, Ellis, I paid $350 for you to be in this T-ball thing. You're going to get your picture in it. He went, nope, not getting my picture taken. I said, well, I paid for a Chato. We're getting a Chato. And I took his hat off and then sat in amongst a bunch of these little midgets and put his hat on. And I'm sitting there, okay, take the picture. We got a Chato in the picture. And the kids are going like this. And then off in the distance, I heard my son go, Dad, okay, I'll take the picture. Get out of there.
Yeah.
So without forcing him and without, strong arming him or anything, and then he came up and grabbed the hat off of my head and put it on his hat, and he had his little uniform on, and he sat with the other kids scowling, and we got the picture with a Chato in
Psychology for you right there.
Well, actually, I think that's a strategy that works really well. If your kids are doing poorly in school and you can afford to take a day off from work, threaten to go to school with them. If you come home with another,
I did the same thing to my kid.
Take their place in class, though.
Yeah, no. You just say, you know what? I'm going to accompany you to every single classes.
Yep. You're going to be their new study buddy.
So that worked well, and a housewife with 2 kids, who was waiting for their kid to have their picture taken on the team. I came back and she said, that was amazing.
But that's parenting, right? It's just, figuring out how to get your kid to do the right thing. But
I do feel, though, that he does suffer now from what I've done to him.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, I mean, we all suffer under the weight of what our parents did to us. Are you kidding?
Well, I told my children,
other.
my parents screwed me up, so I have every right to screw you up.
Yeah, exactly.
Darn right.
You get better, though, at screwing them up faster as you get more kids.
Yeah, exactly. Well, then you learn how to fast track it.
Yeah, it's exponential with every kid, because the kid helps you screw up the next one below.
That's right.
Yes.
I have to say that I'm blessed with 2 great kids, neither of which did the mid-teens all parents are stupid stage. Never went through that. It was pretty amazing.
You got lucky there.
No, I was very lucky.
Awesome.
So let's jump into some of these super chats, or do we have more to get into here?
Yeah.
So was that enough vamping there, Andre?
What was that?
Was that enough vamping?
That was enough vamping. So everyone, do answer the check out the poll we just posted, way in there. And Tom, let's see if we can find the Ant-Man specific super chats and begin with those.
Let's do that.
Let's do it.
Well, this is not Ant-Man specific, but Mario Trillo said Tom made a good joke. Guess it's time to check the broken clock. Why are pigs flying?
Oh my.
Thank you so much. Hitchhiker 42 asks, did the late reshoots kill a good Ant-Man film? Well, we already kind of touched on this a little bit, but I think coming off of what the gentlemen are saying, it does sound like that's the case.
I would say that They made the movie worse than it was, but honestly, after having seen this, I don't know that there ever was a good movie here.
That's fair.
Because, okay, fine, you have like the stupid jokes and everything. Is that going to change how they all fell into the quantum realm by accident? Will the reshoots change what they did to MODOK? Would the reshoots change any of the contrivances with pertaining to Kang? I don't think so. So yeah, I think that they made the movie even worse, but I don't know that Quantumania was ever a good film or script. What say you? Am I completely wrong? Was this a masterpiece and we need the Snyder cut of Quantumania?
No, far from. This movie this is the one thing that's been rather surprisingly consistent with regards to all of the Phase 4 and even Phase 5s is that they do have ideas that are potentially could be done really, really well, but they don't have anyone competent in the writer's room to execute them to their fullest potential. And Ant-Man is no different in that regard. There's a great story there where you have your heroes trapped in the quantum realm, and their only way to get out is also the same way that could keep a very dangerous person, away from the rest of reality. That's an interesting story to play around with. The fact of the matter is that they didn't have anything beyond that to do anything with. So I think without this reshoots, it probably would have been a more refreshing and better film in comparison to Phase 4, but overall in Marvel, it would very much still be on the bottom tier. And overall, just in general of how a movie is made, it's still very low. It's like I have no interest in seeing it again.
Culture, what say you?
Yeah.
Do you think that the reshoots really mucked it up, or was it screwed from day one?
I don't think we were robbed of a good film because of the reshoots. I think we were robbed of a good film because they're incapable of making them any longer. The reshoots, you could definitely tell. Script could probably outline even better where the lines were definitively where they added the reshoots into it. I think you're right, Andre, in what you said that yeah, I mean, this was going to be a bad film regardless, but it was made worse by what they did with the reshoots. And like I said, I don't know that there's any comeback anytime soon for Marvel because of just how engaged they are in the message. I don't know how else to answer that. So
yeah, no,
I think that's pretty fair assessments. I haven't seen the movie, but you have, Andre. What do you say?
No, basically I stand by the thing that the movie was never a good movie in the first place. This was always, compared to Phases 1 to 3, this was always a bottom tier movie that was made even worse by the reshoots because you destroyed the tone with it. But even without that, fundamentally, this was flawed from day one with all the contrivances and the whole setup. I don't think the multiverse saga is going to work. And so I'm very worried about the future with Marvel here because their next big thing is the multiverse saga. And after the multiverse saga, we can tell right away, comes like the whole incursion and Secret War thing. And based on this, I don't think that any of it is going to work.
You know what? That's probably the best way to encapsulate it all. I think, Andre, is that this was not a good launch for Phase Dive. I do not care any more or less about the multiverse than I did going into it. I'm not convinced that this film isn't going to set the tone for every other film that comes after it. And why would you do it with such a small endeavor to begin with? I mean, a lot of people probably already commented to that effect, but why take the lowest level character and try to ramp it up to Avengers level of importance?
I can tell you exactly why.
Okay.
Because right now, he's the most senior person they got left that they haven't already used up. He's now one of the great old fathers of the Avengers that are still there, that hasn't been completely messed up.
Yeah. I mean, Yeah, I mean they've destroyed Thor how many times now? 3 consecutive films. You're
Well,
about to.
depending on who
I
you
don't know
ask, I
about
would
that,
say
but
only
yeah.
one consecutive film, but
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you're gonna lose Guardians of the Galaxy essentially,
yeah.
and you've A-forced everything else. So,
Script doctor, anything to say to this before we move on?
Nope. Let's move on. We've already spent what,
Yeah,
45
let's
minutes?
move
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
I think we.
Dr. Long Dongler sends in a thumbs up. Please hit that thumbs up if you haven't already. Christian Corleo wants to know, has anybody watched the last episode of South Park? I did.
Yeah,
I thought it was
I
pretty
did
good.
too.
Not
Yeah.
as good as the first episode, but pretty good.
Still, South Park even calls out Marvel that Marvel is destroyed because of wokeness. That's saying something.
well,
No, I think he's talking about the one that just
Markle
premiered
and,
this week.
yeah, the Markle
One
and
to
Harry.
the royal family of Canada.
Oh right. Oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Okay, that I had
trying to
not
get
seen
some
yet.
privacy by advertising how much they want privacy.
Yeah.
The funnier
that I
part
have
to me
not-
was Kyle kept talking about him, and they're like, dude, you keep talking about him. It's like you're obsessed with him. I'm not obsessed with him. They moved in across the street. It's like that little bit was funnier than the rest, but yeah. And the branding bit I thought was pretty funny. But yes, so some of us have seen it. We got Jestero of Roanoke. Sorry. Jestero Roanoke became a member. Thank you so much. Then we'll get back to that one. Disney Renaissance, says Mizzy Buddy, was started with Little Mermaid, and self knockoff era will end with Little Mermaid. I can dream. Maybe poignant.
You might be
Maybe
right.
Poignant.
You might be right.
Mark that super chat.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Mr. Tickle Trunk says, thinking people on YouTube are driving the drop in entertainment. They have more power than multinational corporations making content police.
They're trying to argue that.
Are they really trying to say it's our fault?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, yeah, of course you have to have someone to blame.
Yeah. Can't blame yourself. There are no introspection being done. No.
Well, that's Hollywood. If you do blame yourself, you'll never get hired again.
Yeah. That's wow. That's
Hollywood is learning how to blame others, but that's a corporate thing too.
yeah. Well, they shouldn't have put a town in Ohio that had trains running through it.
Oh, that's not funny.
Yeah. Sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, ride before the lightning thunderheart. Sends in 10 Canadian buckaroos and says, hail Andre, Tom's Culture, Script, and Paul. Going to Antifa Man. Script, I joined your Patreon. Andre, how did you like the Rune Viking Warlord cutscenes? Actually bald when Ragnar ascends to Valhalla.
They were good because Rod, he sent me some cutscenes from a video game, and yeah, they were good. They looked amazing. Of course, it's a game that I would have a really hard time playing because I do best on like 2D platformers. But yeah, they look good.
Yes, and Rod, thank you so much for joining my Patreon. I saw that. I hope you are enjoying the content there. And for anyone else out there that is interested, please feel free to peruse it over. And if you want, sign up. It's a lot of fun. And I'm grateful for all the patrons that have signed up. And there's been a lot of awesome interactions this month. So thank you.
That's right.
Yeah,
so do check that out.
In the description.
Yes. So thank you for that, Rod. We appreciate that. And hopefully your viewing of Antifa Man does not go too bad. So yeah. And then we got Tendao Kiru, if I'm saying that right, who says, how are they going to have successful Avenger movies when no one likes the new Avengers? Like, I can see that being a problem. They're going to be relying completely on Spider-Man on getting butts in the seats, basically.
Yeah, because the new Avengers are going to be dominated by Shang-Chi and all of the people we were introduced to in Phase 4. But Cultured, I see that you really want to comment on that. So go for it. You're muted.
You're muted.
I wanted to add to what you were saying. I muted myself. Self-censoring. No, but did you see they announced that they've already locked the story for the next Spider-Man film? Why would you do that right when you're launching into this next phase? So people look forward to Spider-Man, Or, I mean, the timing of that seemed curious to me, going into Phase Dive, that you say, well, we've already locked Spider-Man's story. Okay, Feige, why are we doing this now when you have other films coming out?
I can answer that, but I'd love to hear what you all have to say. Why would they talk up Spider-Man when they have loads of other movies coming out? What say you? Chato?
That was odd, because we don't view Spider-Man as a Marvel product. That was I didn't understand that. It's almost incompetent.
Script? Why would they do such a thing?
I don't know. It's kind of foolish because we don't have a solid release date of the next Spider-Man film. We know Tom Holland is signed for another few appearances.
Yeah.
I would suspect that they're trying to hedge their bets and generate enough interest so that they can gain another $1.8 billion box office haul for the next Spider-Man film, and they're just trying to get the marketing done and started as early as possible.
Tom, why would they talk up Spider-Man already?
Well, because technically, yes, it is a Marvel property. And it is put together by the MCU folk. And that's the only fucking thing they got right now. That's why, because as we pointed out, if you take Spider-Man out of the equation, you get that nifty graph that I've shown a few dozen times now that Andre made. And that graph does not look good without Spider-Man. In fact, it looks downright horrible.
That is the key point right there. This is why. The reason they're talking about, oh, we have Spider-Man coming, is because they know that without Spider-Man, everything else they have coming the next few years is a bunch of crap that no one really cares about. So they have to remind you that in between these new characters that haven't really worked, you still have Spider-Man to look forward to. They just have to remind you. Spider-Man is there and Spider-Man is coming. So stay invested. Go see all this other stuff in the meantime because you don't want to miss out for when Spider-Man is coming back. I guarantee you that's why they're doing it.
He's the Tony Stark. He's the only character left in the closet that anyone cares about.
Pretty much.
But
and after No Way Home, that's all they got.
Sony has influence over that movie, right? I mean, it's not just how much of it have they handed over to Feige? Because the last movie was very good. How could that be?
Well,
Sony is technically licensing the character to Marvel to do what they want.
Yeah, it's kind of like a reverse license now. It's really weird. But basically, yes, script is right. Marvel Studios proper produces the film and then delivers it to Sony. Now, I'm sure Amy Pascal has a few things to say here and there, but from what we've heard, she's pretty much been squashed for most of the shit. But like, I think No Way Home was more of an accident than anything. I don't think that's where they originally were headed. As we've said many times before, that movie is a result of Michael Keaton being brought back to The Flash initially. And I think that movie was put together so quickly, so fast, that they didn't really have time to think about interjecting any of the woke shit.
They had the idea
that, it just didn't
worked.
really, yeah. And it didn't really lend itself to that shit either.
I can see basically how Spider-Man No Way Home would go from like, oh, I have an idea for how we can do this. And the story is laid out over the weekend and the script is written in 3 weeks and it's pretty much ready to go. I can see Spider-Man No Way Home being like one of those sparks of genius, which the MCU had plenty things of, where they just had like an idea that worked. They maybe didn't get like the script completely done or something, but there was enough there to hook you and grab you in. And you had that with Spider-Man No Way Home. The problem is you haven't had that for anything else the last 3-4 years.
Well, and my proof of that, other than the fact that, they announced the whole thing, they never actually announced Toby and Andrew were coming back, but we did find out about, I think it was, what's his face who played Green Goblin. What's his name?
Willem Dafoe.
We heard he was coming back, and I think Doc Ock, right?
Yeah.
Those were the earlier ones. So right there, we kind of had an idea of what they were up to. And then you watch the movie, and the cliffhanger from the last movie turns into an afterthought in the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Yep.
So right there tells me that they're set up for this third film, which was supposed to be, Peter Parker trying to, claim his innocence or whatever. ended up becoming an afterthought for the script. It's just crammed into the first part of the movie just so they could get to the rest, basically.
Which I think that's a prison they put themselves into often with the end credit scenes. I mean, how long had they been trying to introduce Adam Warlock into this world? Forever, right? I think distinctly there were 3 different scenes where they were trying to bring Adam Warlock into the MCU, and they're just finally accomplishing that. Like I said, I think sometimes they live in those this is the film we want to do, so we're going to make this end credit scene. But there are times when they don't pay off. I would suggest more often than not those end credit scenes don't pay off very well.
No.
And by the way, just for the record, the best part of Ant-Man, I think, was the post-credit scene. The first.
And that's becoming the norm with all these movies. Like the last few movies, it's like, oh well, the only thing worth the shit is the end credit scene. And even then, it's like a guess factor if you think it's going to be.
Yeah, like I said, it's a prison it's a prison that they put themselves in every time.
Yeah, Goku McDuck says, have you covered how Disney wants to stop publishing works by Don Rosa and Carl Barks for considering characters like Bombi Zombie racist? Andre, have you heard about this?
But we're going to. I know exactly what this is.
Okay.
Now, to be clear, for those that just see this super chat and they wonder who and what, allow me to elaborate. Because back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, stuff like that, right? The Disney comics about Uncle Scrooge and Donald Duck, basically all of those comics on which the DuckTales were inspired, right? They were all made by comics that were created by third parties on license from Disney. And the writer behind most of these stories from the 1930s up until, I think, 1974 was Carl Barks.
Mhm.
And among his fans are, for instance, George Lucas, amongst others. Like, for instance, there's like references to Carl Barks comics in the Indiana Jones movies. Like, for instance, this whole opening to Raiders of the Lost Ark, it's literally ripped straight out of a Carl Barks comic. So massively influential, huge in Europe, much bigger in Europe than it ever was in the States. But these are brilliant comics, and these are the best Disney, like traditional Disney-themed comics ever made, the ones written by Carl Barks. No one even came close until Don Rosa came into the scene in the late 80s. He basically is the successor to Carl Barks. And he wrote again Uncle Scrooge and Donald Duck stories, which were every bit as good, if not even better, than the Carl Barks stories. And again, these are stories which are kind of like Indiana Jones. These are the stories that basically are the foundation for DuckTales. You like DuckTales? That was the stupid Saturday morning version of the comics by Carl Barks and Don Rosa. Now,
You can't fool us. You can't fool us, Andre. We know that Carl Barks was a pseudonym for a certain socialist who was slumming on the side making comics. We know that.
You say so. But anyway, what
Carl
has
Barks,
happened recently?
So obvious.
Is that Disney, they decided that, oh, we're woke now, so maybe we need to go and take a look at our catalog of stuff and see if there is something more here that isn't completely up to standards in our current cultural revolution. Maybe something needs to be censored. And that's exactly what they found out. So they're not canceling all of Don Rosa and all of Carl Barks. They haven't gotten to Carl Barks yet, but they have gotten to Don Rosa. And what they found there were at least 2 comics that they deemed, for whatever reason, not to be kosher. Basically, they were not with the times and not satisfactory. They didn't comply with the woke ideology. Now, one of these basically has like a voodoo zombie in it. So that's one reason. The other, I believe, is Dream of a Lifetime. That would be the story which inspired Inception, the movie. And I say that because if you read Inception, or see the movie Inception, and then you read the comic, The Dream of a Lifetime, or whatever, and you realize that that comic predates the movie Inception by years, there is no way in hell that the makers of Inception did not read that particular comic and rip it off completely. Ain't no way that didn't happen, because every single trope in the movie Inception is literally in that comic. And yeah, but anyway, the point then is that so they took then one story out of the life and times of Scrooge McDuck, which is like a 12-issue miniseries, and they took out the one of the chapters of it, and that means the whole thing. There's no point in reading the rest of it. And it's one of the greatest comics ever made. It's a complete joke because there is nothing bad whatsoever in those comics. They're the best comics, among the best comics ever written. I know that we mostly talk like DC and Marvel and stuff like that, but honestly, the comics by Don Rosa are better than 90% of any other comic out there. I mean, I'd put Don Rosa above Neil Gaiman at his best. I'd put him above Garth Ennis. I'd put him above Stan Lee. And then they go and they cancel Don Rosa. At least some of his comics. It's completely ridiculous. I have actually met Don Rosa on a couple of occasions.
Well, and on that note,
he's a rock star in Europe. Like, for instance, if you have like a comic book convention and you have Stan Lee and you have Neil Gaiman, and in Norway, people are going to flock in front of Don Rosa because he's the rock star. So yeah, I've met him at a couple of signings in Norway.
Well, on that note, would we have him on the stream? Oh, hell yeah.
I'd love to.
Honestly, we would pretty much talk to anybody, even those people that you think we wouldn't.
Yeah, like that Sonic dude that people had a huge issue with.
If Kathleen Kennedy, Ryan Johnson,
we'd
even
have them
Alex
all on.
Kurtzman. We'd talk to Alex Kurtzman.
We'd have some very tough questions for him, but hell yeah,
absolutely.
we'd talk to him. I'd love to have Don Rosa on.
Yeah, and then Tennille sends in 10 and says, "Oh no movement on the Acolyte. Now whatever will I play? Will I play to make unwelcome guests leave the party? I won't throw in the mansion I don't own." Well, sounds like there is some movement, so you'll have that to throw your guests out with.
Yeah, like
drive them away.
Like I said, I mean, it was suggested that August it would be released. I think it'll be much later than that. So
yeah. The Walt Man says THR reported that it's all about the numbers now. Yeah, well, a big proponent of this
No poop. No kidding. It's been about the numbers for a long time. It's just, the Wall Street's now paying attention. There's not a lot of free money available. They're not throwing money at a lot of this garbage. So it is what it is.
Yeah. And they were pointing out how basically none of the Marvel shows had like reached any of the top 10 and in 15 in some cases lists of any of the streaming shows on any level. So that was like one of the reasons why this has become a problem. And this is what we were pointing out with the whole thing with the loss of just $3 billion in the movie side of things. That's what we were saying on that stream is that's not even counting the amount of money that's spent on these shows. Because they spend the same amount of money or more on these shows, basically, than they do on a production of the films.
Let me add this. The reason that you restructure your company so many times is to hide what's going on in the background so that there's no comparables. The reason that Disney's doing this and they're actually breaking ESPN out is because they know they just lied to their investors. He said things in a specific way saying that not counting sports. Well, yeah, you have to spend a whole buttload more money on sports because ESPN needs to retain their basketball contract with the NBA. They need to retain those rights, and so ESPN's still going to spend money. They're going to spend money hand over fist, and they just lied to their investors. And if you think you're going to get any meaningful dividend out of the single stock that you own or, or your entire portfolio that you own with Disney, you're wrong. All they has to do is write a 17-cent dividend for each share or less. I mean, Peltz may have won the battle when it comes to that, but overall, there's still a war going to have to be waged against Disney in order to get them to turn back from what they're doing. And if like I said, I mean, the reason they broke out ESPN is to hide things. The reason they restructured the film and television once again is to hide things. Again, that's the only reason it is. So, Mike and Tom work out that, you have a $3 billion loss in the cinema side of things. We've been talking about that for the whole year. They're in trouble because they are getting less than half the butts in the seats they used to get for their theatrical releases. Streaming is a freaking pipe dream, at least until 2024 and 2025. So, and Disney's not the only one who's in trouble. And you look at the companies that are already turning around and getting back in the good graces of Wall Street. It's Warner Brothers leading the way, and Paramount's figuring it out too. So there you are. Sorry.
There you go. And then I didn't even realize Jonas was in the chat. Hey, Jonas. I just sent you the link earlier to talk all this Disney business. Send me a message if you want to hop in, if you saw Picard, because we're going to get to that real soon here, real quick. As soon as we finish up these super chats about Disney. Jonas says, our creatives equals anyone we can possibly hire. Well, I think it's as long as it's within their political purview anyway.
Yeah, there's some tests you have to pass to get in, some purity tests.
Yeah. Exactly. Lord Pepsi says, with Ant-Man, don't underestimate the normies. However, normie numbers will show what is versus a full normie and comic crowd should be. Great job, y'all. Honestly, it's shaping up to do exactly what most of us had predicted. It is opening 11. It had 11 million, less so far in its previews than Wakanda Forever. Wakanda Forever settled somewhere, in the $800 million range. Yeah. It was all said and done. We had said this movie was going to do no better than the last one. That's about where it's probably going to settle it may even do less, because there's still a chance this thing could fall off a cliff and get killed by Cocaine Bear next weekend.
And Marvel still has a brand out there.
Oh, absolutely.
And to the normie public. And this is the only movie that's on this weekend. It's going to get killed next week.
This weekend. Next weekend, though, that's the question. That's what I was saying. Point.
Yeah. So this weekend, it has no competition. That's what we're seeing actually here. We're just the no competition result.
And you get the ultimate deep knee bend from Bob Iger that gets films back into China. And again, that's going to be the only thing to artificially prop this film up with the global box.
This is the first one that's actually opening day and date in China, correct? That was another point that was being made.
Yeah, but the other thing to that is they're only going to collect 20-25% of those box office revenues from China. So it's artificial.
Lucky.
It's artificial revenue at best. Again, it's like, I'm looking at it and I'm going, look, you're going to see some impressive global numbers the first weekend. They're not going to be impressive by Marvel standards, but they'll be impressive by a normal movie standard. And then after that, Cocaine Bear could possibly, I think Tom's right, it could possibly beat this film in its second weekend.
I'm predicting it will.
At this point, it's more or less, is it going to be a neck and neck race, or is it going to be no contest? That's going to be the big thing.
It's going to be a
slaughter. Because if it's a slaughter, if Cocaine Bear slaughters Ant-Man, then heads are going to fucking roll at Disney. I guarantee, because that's an R-rated film, no less, beating it.
I'm going to it. I haven't been this excited by a movie in a long time.
Like, my initial prediction is that we'll sit here, go through the weekend, and it'll keep looking like Ant-Man's doing the big one, but we'll keep hearing about Cocaine Bear doing well. And then come Sunday, there'll be this big thing of like a matter of a couple $1 million between the two. And it might even be Monday before we know. But if it's the other way around and Cocaine Bear slaughters Ant-Man, then heads will fucking roll.
What was Megan's first weekend?
It was pretty
about $40 million, I think it was. And I had suggested that it could have done better had it had more screens to play on.
Yeah,
because Avatar was taking up the bigger screens.
It was artificially suppressed by Avatar and the other one that was still in the theater, and I can't remember what the other film was. But yeah, it was held down into the number of screens.
Puss in Boots?
Is it Puss in Boots? It was something else was out at the same
Puss in Boots still does well. Like that's the thing, even though it's on video on demand, it's still doing well. Yeah,
I think Cocaine Bear will do as well as Megan, if not better.
I think so, and that's where I was saying that $40 million range, and that would be a hell of a drop as well for Ant-Man, considering. But
but it's going to have that from word of mouth.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking exactly. Daryl the Derelict says, "I love it when culture talks dirty." Ooh.
Cocaine Bear's entire budget was less than one of the reshoot budgets on Ant-Man.
Pretty much.
Probably true.
Hello,
Jonas.
Jonas.
Johan.
Hello. I got to mute you
How
guys.
are you?
Hey, Jonas.
Johan, good to see you.
And then Daryl the Derelict says here, no matter how much Marvel spends on a movie, it will be low rent. Ooh. Sorry, I just want to get that out of the way. How you doing this morning, Jonas?
I'm doing fantastic. I watched Picard season 3 this morning, and I was very surprised. But I can save that for that
Yeah,
portion.
we'll get
we're getting to that actually.
Here. Before we do, let's just
yes.
end everything Ant-Man.
Yeah, let's get through the rest of these Ant-Man super chats.
And the
Ant-Man
poll.
3 is so bad it awoke Rant Man, says Miguel Farah. Yeah. And in a way, it kind of has. Tennille says Ant-Man is supposed to be the opening of Phase 5, right? Starting off as they mean to go on then. MCU evidently now stands for Marvel Continuous Underperformance. That's right. That's a good way of pointing it out. You want to start it with a bang, don't you? Exactly. So there you go. And then let's see here. Next in line, we've got another one from Tennille who says balls. I put the comma in the wrong place. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for that.
For the next one, let's just finish the poll that I put up a little while ago, where we have the options.
Yes.
I saw Quantumania and loved it. 3% said that, and 5% said I saw Quantumania and hated it. Another big one. 92% of you just simply answered done with the MCU.
There you go.
Well, the box office has been reflecting that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And on that note, Mecha J says it's clear that they're going to do everything to make Ant-Man 3 out to be the box office success, not another MCU phase disappointment. Exactly. And I remember pointing this out, that they're going to hedge everything. It's going to be the biggest opening for an Ant-Man movie, so they'll say that, but it ain't going to be by much. And then it's, they'll keep hedging it every which way they can, I bet.
I love all these hedges. It's the biggest movie the biggest non-sequel to open on a Tuesday after that weekend that did not star this and that. It's like
biggest movie of Black History
hedges
Month.
just to create a record.
Yeah, the biggest opening of the last 3 months. Yeah, exactly. Or
No, I said biggest opening of Black History Month.
Oh, Black History Month. Oh, I don't know. I think Deadpool might have that one.
It's yeah. I can't even go there.
Planetary Aspect says, please explain your definition of no stakes. Death is a stake, etc. Even a duplicate character isn't the same person. The other still died. Gamora. This is technically true, but
death is a low tier stake. We're talking about high stakes. Yeah. What's the repercussions? Is it death or is it suffering for eternity? Like, which one is worse?
Well, the minute you introduce a multiverse, you've eliminated a whole lot of stakes.
Here's a good example. A good stake of Endgame, even though you can disagree or agree on how it was handled on the outcome, was that they could change some things, but then Tony is facing the fact that he would lose his daughter.
Yep.
Right? Or that the possibility that his daughter might not exist if this happens.
Definitely wouldn't exist if they changed anything.
That's the thing. Yeah, like that's the whole stake. That's a stake that's involved. Yes, that's technically a death per se.
Stake.
But
And
it's
also,
a personal stake for Tony, exactly. Yes,
and it's a relatable stake for everyone in the audience that has kids.
Yeah.
And I'll add to that, Gamora's death is of great significance to Peter. So you have destroyed one of your main heroes by having him try to do a mercy killing. In order to save the universe, he's willing to sacrifice his love. And then she's replaced, but he's still lost everything that they have gained in the last few films. And it creates a question. So they replace it with different stakes that matter to the characters we're already familiar with. So you can have the end of the world, or you can have the end of a parent or relatable figure. It's all in how they communicate that to the audience.
Right. And it's also the type of relationships those characters have with each other that makes us care. If they have bad relationships, we're not going to care as much as if they had great relationships.
Right.
I think we're really trying not to talk about Picard because, my goodness, there's a great example from that.
We're getting there.
There is. I actually wrote about it on my Patreon.
Yeah. But it's like you said. I mean, and I will say this, as has been said in the chat. I like my steak medium rare.
Yes, I like a little crispy in the fat sides, but
So I got to get going soon. So let's get to Picard.
yes,
guys.
let's do it. Alan Octavian Moldovan, member for 18 months, says had some of my normie friends watching Wakanda 2. They all said they wasted 2.5 hours of their life, and asked what is happening with MCU movies of late. Well, the woke is happening. Let's see here. Any more that are specific? Well, this one's for Chato. We can get to that one while we're going on the other ones. Action Cop says, Chato, with female Starsky and Hutch in the works, with female Rockford Files be close behind.
Wow. We are bereft of creativity.
It's like it's 2016 again, all over again. Right?
I mean, is the female Starsky and Hutch the new Thelma and Louise?
That's what I was saying. Like, we already
Thelma
had that.
and
It's
Louise,
called
but they're
Cagney
cops.
and Lacey.
We have Cagney and Lacey. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
The only
one-
difference is
one-
the car.
Yeah, and was it Cagney or Lacey was part of the other team already? We're saying they were way ahead of the game.
Yeah, wasn't it a spinoff of something else already? You're right.
And yeah, it's just number one, remaking it. Where are they going to get the Torino? That's what I want to know. Here's a quick thing on Starsky and Hutch. The car they used was a 3-speed automatic, but because that sucked from a sound perspective, whenever they were driving off, they ADR'd a 4-speed manual into it.
Yep.
It's kind of like when they do a bigger gun for a smaller gun on screen.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
But I guess it would have been easier for the drivers to drive around the manual anyway.
Right. And then
there you go.
Thank you. And then Neil says, to be honest, I was waiting for reviews on Ant-Man 3. Such a shame. It sounds so awful. Peyton Reed deserved better. Get your crap together, Marvel. Indeed. And then to Neil says, Culture's Phase 5 Portmanteau deserves a tip. Did I say that right? Portmanteau?
Yeah.
Portmanteau. Okay, there we go. John Apocalypse has been a member for 5 months. Thank you. You lot still see Little Mermaid making 10 figures.
I never saw it making 10 figures.
I don't know.
She has 10 fingers.
Yes.
She only because she has
She
not
has
on
10
her toes.
toes.
She has no toes.
She has a fin, 2 fins.
She has a fin.
She's digitally challenged.
Yeah,
So
she'll never get.
I would say Mermaid's in for a $5.
That was
I would love to have her cameo appear in Ant-Man Quantumania, so we could have a discussion on her number of holes. That would be fun.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah, that was stupid.
Hyperguyver 2 says, go ahead, Paul.
I was just gonna say I was gonna make a sushi joke, but never mind.
Ooh. Did she sue you? Sushi? Hyperguyver 2
Leave the
says,
jokes to the professionals, Tom, please.
Hey, that was pretty damn good. Hey, Tom, I saw the ad for Megan unrated. Can we get a Walton Goggins?
I fucking knew it! Oh!
There you go.
Yeah, we all pretty much figured this was going to happen anyway, but yes, so that's good news. Star Wars community says Marvel needs to stop biting the hand that feeds.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
They don't
So does
understand the
Lucasfilm.
concept.
Yep. And then Mega Wing Zero says the Secret Wars Disney is basing the movie had the core conflict was years-long fight about Doctor Doom and Mr. Fantastic. There, everyone intro to Doom and the Fantastic Four is right before.
Yeah, they're obviously going to change that aspect of the comics.
They might, yeah.
Yeah, I'm so bummed.
Yeah. And then Maverick Christian. Here's one for Paul because you were just reading these, and maybe anybody else, maybe like script. Best She-Hulk graphic novel volumes, real quick.
Oh, Jesus, Murphy. Well, I'm not a She-Hulk expert, but I did go out and buy all the She-Hulk origins and all the legal ones, and also a whole bunch by Kirby. Was it?
Well, Kirby did some of the Savage.
I say scripted was
She-Hulk?
quite a few of them.
Anyways, yeah, I
Yeah.
really enjoyed the She-Hulks. They're a terrific diversion.
Maverick, I'll give you Google the website, it's the complete Marvel reading order, and you can find She-Hulk, and it'll give you every single appearance she's ever made. You've got the Sensational She-Hulk, which is the John Byrne run. You have the Savage She-Hulk, which was started with Stan Lee and then was picked up by other writers and artists in the 70s and 80s. And it also gives you a whole slew of all of her appearances ever since her publication date, and it'll tell you what comics that she appeared in, where you can probably find them online to read or buy and whatnot. It's a pretty well thought out source. So
There
I
you
hope
go.
that helps you there.
All right. And then David Deacon Little says, I actually enjoy Jonathan Majors as Kang. Cheers.
Yeah, well, glad you did.
Cool.
Yeah. And then with that, ladies and gentlemen, we got one more here, and then we're getting into the Picard business. Mega J says it's clear that they're going to do everything to make Ant-Man 3. We got this one already, but thank you so much, Mega J, to be the box office success, not another MCU phase disappointment. Yeah, we brought that up too. Is like, yeah, this is a way to start it off with a bang, right? Anyhow, with that, let's get on the Picard discussion. So, Andre and I, we reviewed the first season of Picard to much of our chagrin. I think if I remember right, my brain had kicked in to try to protect itself and just started forgetting everything it could as soon as I could watch it back then. And I was glad when it was over.
Yeah.
I did not watch season 2. You did though, right, Andre?
Sadly? No, I did not watch season 2. Season 1 of Picard to me was so unbelievably bad. I had no interest in watching season 2, and also I felt that the series should be retitled at that point, because to me, after the conclusion of season 1, calling the series Picard was dishonest, because Picard is dead. Picard is no longer with us. He died at the end of season 1. So the series from season 2 onwards should have been called the android or the android replica of the late Picard, and that's what he should be referred to as forever. It was completely ridiculous. I mean, Tom, you don't like fake characters. How about this? You killed the character and replaced him with a robot.
Yeah, that was an idea that was even presented in the original series. There was a Dr. Corby. He copied his consciousness into an android, but he was not the real Corby.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, Christine Chapel's like ex-lover or something. I remember.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
I remember that.
It's amazing to me. I just got done with a series. I on my side, I'm done with the production phase, and now it's in post-production. Actually, episode 2 of Everything Woke About Picard. I'm not trying to plug it. I'm just doing to explain context here.
I get plug it. Don't be. We're shameless here.
Well, it's uploaded to YouTube. I haven't released it on my channel because I'm trying to do like scheduled uploads. I might release it early because I just want to get this thing out. Episode 3, my part 3 ends with they have replaced Picard with a lifeless shell that is a shadow of its former self. And there is no other more poetic way for them to own themselves than to end the series that way. There is so much contemplation of horrible things, of suicide, and I mean the show is just morose and obsessed with death. And there are mercy killings by parental figures. There's body torture, everything that you of course know and love about Star Trek: The Next Generation, right?
As a parent, I do think about mercy killings.
Who's the mercy on though?
Oh, I might, obviously. I got the feeling that episode 3 was the Jonathan Frakes show. He was the one that brought all the joy back.
Now you say episode 3. Are you?
Sorry, season 3. Season 3, episode 1.
It was amazing.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
No need to mercy.
You were saying
yourself.
Jonas,
That's all good.
Well, my problem with the android Picard is why do you stick yourself into another shitty old body? Like, make it into some bodybuilder or something.
Yeah, that was my big thing as well. Of course, he didn't do it. And that's what's even more infuriating, is that Picard did not stick himself in the android body because Picard is dead. He's no longer with us. It was everyone else so that they wouldn't feel bad and miss him they were like, oh, let's just feel better by making an android replica of him. And since the real Picard wouldn't appreciate any changes to his body, then let's make it so that this android replica is every bit as old and decrepit and even have a built-in flaw, so he can drop dead at any moment. Just like the real Picard, because he's that old.
I didn't watch season 1 or 2.
Okay, well, what's even dumber about season 1 is, like, we had gotten a buttload of leaks that were pretty much accurate up until the last couple episodes, and then we come to find out later that there was a truckload of reshoots. So the initial idea was Data was going to be transferred into this Golem instead of Picard, from my original understanding. That all changed at the last minute. For some dumb reason, they decided to do it to Picard instead. And Picard was initially either supposed to die or this other thing was supposed to happen, and just it didn't work out that way, so they reshot it. And we know this because the Captain Hubris was originally supposed to be in it instead of Jonathan Frakes and some other things. And season 2, like I said, we never watched it. The whole thing to me was done after season 1. But then in the midst of all this crap, I don't know how far I want to jump ahead with this, but like Robert Meyer Burnett and I had heard some things separately, and we'd had a discussion. We'd come to basically determine, and later some of this had been confirmed through interviews with like Akiva Goldsman and stuff like that. But basically during the Strange New Worlds was the show that was Akiva Goldsman's baby. And what I mean by that was, he even said this in an interview later on, that this was the show that he thought Discovery was going to be when he signed up for it. So what we had kind of surmised behind the scenes that happened between what I had heard and what Robert had heard is that this show came to being, CBS gave it the green light, Kurtzman got pissed, and we come to find out why he got pissed later on is because they're only allowed 5 shows at a time. And when he got that greenlit, that pushed his Section 31 show off the thing for now, until they renegotiated their contract almost a couple months later. So at that point, he was pissed that they had gotten this Strange New World show. So this was Akiva Goldsman's baby, right? At the same time, Akiva Goldsman suddenly took over during Picard season 2. What else happened around that period? Clarice happened around that period. Clarice was meant to be a very prestigious show for CBS, and that was egg on their face. And who was behind Clarice? Alex fucking Kurtzman was. And if you'll remember, they had an Entertainment Weekly review of that show that I wanted to frame. It was so beautiful because it was like one of us had written it. They went after Kurtzman with knives out. And at that point, you could tell that basically he had become persona non grata behind the scenes. There was even rumors that he had been kicked out of or left the freaking office and all this other stuff.
Well, that was because he just ended up going to work on the Man Who Fell to Earth right away.
The Man Who Fell to Earth anyway. But then they had the renegotiations of the contracts. Then Terry Matalas comes in near the end of season 2 of Picard. And now this guy has worked on Star Trek before. And then that's when we had heard this guy had pretty much taken over completely of Picard. His first question is, why isn't the rest of the TNG cast in here? And they said, well, that's not the kind of show that they wanted to be. And he said, well, that's too bad. That's what the audience wants. And so hence, that's where we're at right now. Andre, I don't know if you want to add or subtract anything from that.
We should add that a big part of the problem here is actually Patrick Stewart himself. Because on character, or in character, Patrick Stewart is amazing. He's a brilliant, brilliant actor. Patrick Stewart, the individual, by all accounts, is just another Mark Hamill. He's really not the same kind of mortal, upstanding character that he portrays on screen.
Oh, just listen to an interview with him.
That didn't want it to be a Next Generation show. He was the one that kept all his former colleagues out, basically. No, this has to be completely different, and I'm part of the woke crowd, so this has to be woke as hell as well. And that he was a big part of the reason why the season 1 was so absolutely dreadful. Season 2 I have never seen. I cannot comment on it. What I do know is that Terry Matalas, he came in season 2, but he did not have free reign in season 2. He didn't have free reign until season 3. And that is where we begin now with season 3.
Well, you're missing one extra point. Kurtzman, Goldman, and Shaban left to do other things. There was no one there available to do season 3. Terry Matalas was already there, and he's just stepped up. Like, they didn't even consider him as far as I understand. He just said, I can do it. And they're like, oh, great, because we need somebody. We don't have any. And you've got this great show in your repertoire, which is 12 Monkeys. Here you go. We have no problems at this point.
I think you're right,
Basically,
Script, because the way that Robert had said it in one of the streams I was listening to him talk about it, basically when he said he talked to Terry, the impression that he had got is that they just weren't paying attention. So he was able to get in whatever he wanted at that point. Like you said, everybody was off doing other shit. So
here's the confusing thing for me. After having done this super deep dive into this show and watching every minute of the series at least 4 times, Captain Picard is treated like so much crap in that show. I mean, they are falling all over themselves to disrespect this character. And if it was just a straight up vanity project on the part of Patrick Stewart, I could understand him coming back and it being, oh no, look at this amazing guy. But it's especially, there's a great contrast. Once 7 of 9 shows up, there are entire scenes just dedicated to how amazing 7 of 9 is. And this is, of course, before they do the reveal that, by the way, they're updating her now and she's not straight as she's been in the past. She's now a lesbian half robot action star. And she's infamous. She's well known. She walks into the crime bosses, which, by the way, it's a lady crime boss, of course, because anyone in power in this show has to be a lady. They know who 7 of 9 is. Everyone knows who 7 of 9 is. Even the villains who are worried about Picard, they know who 7 of 9 is, but they don't recognize Picard until, oh, yeah, you're that guy. You're an idiot. There are maybe 2 minutes of that wonderful, like, Space Optimus Prime level of, like, I'm going to give you guidance on the nature of life, which, by the way, for a show that contemplates life and death so much, I would love to have the Jean-Luc Picard of the Next Generation commenting on that for the entirety of the show. He's a great paternal figure that doesn't want to be a dad in TNG, and he's almost nowhere to be found in Picard season 1.
No, and he's nowhere to be found in season 2 because, again, Patrick Stewart. Okay, here's another misnomer. More actors like to play damaged, tragic characters than they like to play lauded, heroic characters because there's more to work with a damaged, tragic character. And Patrick Stewart incorporated some of his own personal issues with regards to season 2 because he wanted to have those dramatic roles that were different than what he got in Star Trek Next Generation, and it reflects more on his theater work. That's why we got those weird tones. It was, again, he's an executive producer. He was in the writer's room, and he led the creative direction of the season 1 and season 2. But it looks like in season 3, he was not allowed to be as involved in that choice at this point.
Yeah, good thing, because he had shown himself not to be worthy of that responsibility.
Well, he's an actor. It's a job to him. He does not have to care about the characters and whether the continuity is straight or not. It's all about what performance can I do? What performance can I get accolades for? And if it fits the continuity or doesn't, who cares? It's about the performance of that scene, of that moment, of that show, of that episode. That's what I've encountered a lot of actors feel with regards to their characters.
Well, and that's what we were trying to say before. It's like Patrick Stewart doesn't give a shit what you want out of Picard. He just gives a shit about what he wants to do with that because of what he wants to be able to do on screen. And you're right. He wants to chew the scenery in some sad, sappy scene. And like Jonas, what you were saying before, that was every week we were like, oh, who's he going to apologize to this week? Like that was the ongoing joke for his white fragility. Like, it's like, it was constant. But okay, so yeah, I didn't watch season 2, but you did, Script, and as you said, it sounds more like more of the same from the first season.
Well, they go back to the 21st century San Francisco, which is boring. They play with an alternate reality that is, we don't know how it happened, but it did, and Q dies or is dying, which also makes no sense because he's an omnipotent creature, and they've already talked about how difficult it is for Q to die in a Voyager episode, and yeah, it's just nonsensical.
Can I ask you something about season 2? Because I just have a feeling. So they have replaced Picard with a robot, a synthetic. Do they still act like he has Borg technology in him? Do they forget that they have replaced his body from the cellular level and still have him like reacting to Borgs? in all of that? Because I know the Borg play into season 2. I just haven't watched it.
The Borg play into season 2. The thing is, they show there's a psychological connection still with the Borg, but they kind of skirt around the fact that, like, they don't just disregard the fact that he was assimilated, but they do skirt around the fact that he doesn't technically have any of the nanobots still swarming around in his system to have the same type of response to the Borg as he did in some of the TNG episodes and in First Contact. That's not there in season 2 that I can remember.
There is some antipathy in season 3, episode 1, with the fellow who is leading that Titan or whatever that
The
vessel.
captain of the Titan, yeah.
Let's get into season 3 now.
Who the hell cares about season 1 and 2? They're garbage.
Thank
You know that.
Christ,
Season
I'm
3.
sitting here
Well,
bored
no,
out of my mind.
I wasn't
Let's
expecting
get
to go on and on about it. I was just asking about if it was more of the same.
Like tragedy too, you know, at that time.
Yeah, that's true. But okay,
No.
so the
On
point
behalf
being,
of the streamers watching us.
yes,
dear Lord.
indeed. So
You
let's get
must
into
share my
this.
pain.
So, moving on to season 3. Mr.
'Cause,
Chato, I know that you have been itching to talk about season. Let's begin with it. Like, what were your expectations for season 3 going in, and what did you ultimately think about it?
So my experiences with Discovery, Strange New Worlds, and none of the Picards. So I have not seen any of them, possibly and primarily because of so many online people I trusted saying stay away. So I didn't. So I'm coming at season 3 with a little bit of knowledge about what went prior, like the androiding of Picard. And I'm just trying to pretend this is the very first episode of Picard. Like, how do I feel about this show if this was the season opener of season 1? And from that perspective, I thought it was a great, season 1 episode. I enjoyed it. There was some pew pew pew, which is kind of not Star Trek-y, really, but it was adventurous. Got to see some old friends. Jonathan Frakes was just absolutely brilliant in it. I mean, he is so funny, and Stewart is frail. It's not the same Patrick Stewart. So I think Jonathan Frakes really does carry the show. I mean, plot wise, it's silly sci-fi stuff, but at least they didn't stop to talk about their pronouns. The bridge of the Enterprise is still a bit like, how do you work in those kinds of dark conditions?
Yeah, I know.
I would imagine it needs to be brighter. It's still a bit too big, not as big as that ridiculous disco bridge, which I'm understanding they built it that big in Toronto so they can now resell it as condos after they finish the shoot. And it's just, just little small things like that. I thought it was funny that he heard the chirping of his 20, 30-year-old or whatever communicator, and he asked the computer in his household, where is it? And he said, I don't know where it is. I just pull out your fucking iPhone and just, where's my iPhone? It would have
Find
found
my communicator.
Yeah, where's my communicator? What? This AI entity that you're able to ask all sorts of questions of doesn't know where the little chirping is coming from. So then he rummages through his stuff and found the little communicator, which I thought was fun. Clearly it's got a very good lithium battery in it, like a very high quality, because it's lasted powered up for that long. And yeah, after that point it got kind of fun. I mean, the mutiny by of 7 of 9, you kind of knew was coming, that gets tiresome. But again, it was just so enjoyable to see the old characters do their thing. And then Gates Chapel,
No, Gates McFadden.
No, it was
plays
Gates
Dr.
McFadden.
Crusher.
yeah, she's got now a skunk do, and I thought she looked pretty hot. And she's got a new boy that isn't Wesley Crusher.
Yes,
I was wondering if he was about to say Wesley.
No, it's a son she could probably be proud of for once.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one she doesn't have to hide away in embarrassment.
Well, I think Wesley got killed.
No, in season 2, he is actually he's like a traveler. He's like the guy that's responsible for Gary 7 back in the original series.
Anyways, so you know what? If I'm comparing Disco and Strange New Worlds, this was way more entertaining than any of the Kurtzman Trek that I saw. And if he had no involvement in it, then that would make sense. Although I did find at the end, the credits, Kurtzman's credit is bigger than anyone else's. It's like everyone's got this tiny, and then suddenly executive producer, Kurtzman. That's huge.
That might be the only influence he had over that show.
I thought that was pretty funny. Yeah, it had the cliffhanger at the very end. We're going to find out. I know there was not a lot of love for the drug-addled alcoholic woman, but I thought now that she's a spy for, she's pretending she continues to be a
junkie,
an addict, I thought was a nice, quick way to deal with it. It did feel funny when she was communicating to her spy network. She kind of went off to the side of the road and got out the communicator and didn't put it next to her head. She went, "Okay, I've got this spy information now, Red Lady, and we got to keep this secret. No one should know." What?
Yeah, I thought that was silly, but also in line with the character of Raffi because she's very arrogant and stupid.
Oh, is she? I don't know anything about. I like the actress, but so I that was dumb. That was like extremely dumb. But other than that, it had it felt more like TNG2 than it did any of the new Trek for me.
Now, speaking of producer credits, did you notice what planet that Raffi or however you pronounce that? Did you see what planet she was on?
Yeah, Matala.
Metalis.
Yeah.
What does that mean to me?
Well, that's the name of the showrunner, Terry Matalis.
Oh, right, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think he did a good job. The show was kind of fun. After so much horribleness, it was certainly better than Strange New Worlds, which I found to be frustratingly mediocre and very woke in places.
Now, the thing I noticed right off the bat, even though the score of Picard Season 1 was actually quite beautiful in places, whoever did the music for Picard Season 1, it is the only thing that I have zero complaints about. The great score. But coming back to something closer to Jerry Goldsmith in Season 3, it just felt wonderful. I don't know if that Star Trek title card that's on there now is what's on everything, but it's something hopeful and kind of heroic. And I appreciated that.
Yeah, and the opening song, when we saw the derelict crusher vessel, I thought that was kind of hip. I thought that was a nice little choice. Very actually very Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah. It was also a very tiny ship. Like when the shuttle docks with it, you realize, oh, that's like a 6-person shuttle, and it's an eighth of the ship in size. You're like, oh man, that is small.
And there's the usual tropes where fire up the engines. It's going to take some time, of course.
Yeah.
Can't do it just yet. Fire up warp drive. You got time.
I also appreciate that when Dr. Crusher overpowered whoever came onto the ship, it wasn't that she just came out brute force. Again, another thing about Picard Season 1, you'll have these tiny lady characters that will strangle with one hand a male character. Just things that, and they're both Romulan, so there's no species difference here that they can play with. In this, she had to get
Romulan. Yeah, that's now you have to preface that the females weren't Romulan because they have the superior strength.
Wasn't the babe that Picard was running off with, wasn't she Romulan?
Yep, she's a Romulan, and there's an android woman in the first season that's an android, so she's got superhuman strength because she's an android. But it's the human characters that when they have that do some of the stuff against Romulans, you're like, well, and
Romulans have a much longer lifespan. So this young babe that Picard's got could actually, in theory, be older than Picard.
Yes. And her husband died in between season 1 and 2, so that's why she's with Picard now.
Okay,
so
now,
Paul,
Yeah,
Now
that was a little
he's from
confusing for me.
he's from the Irish. She's from the Irish part of Romulus, and he's from the Northern England
Yeah.
part of Romulus.
Because
they
I
don't-
had I wasn't even 100% sure who she was at first, because I was like asking Andre, I'm like, who's this chick who's macking on Picard now? Who do you get to when did these two get together? He's like, that's the housekeeper from the first season.
Yeah, exactly. She's one that hasn't changed.
I'm like, oh yeah, that's her. Okay, then I was like thinking, where's her husband? But I did not know that till now. And then
I want to ask a question. Paul, was the first episode of season 3 in focus?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
I do get tired, and this was a problem. A problem I had on TNG was they didn't reflect any of the technology that we already had on this planet and extrapolated it. Like right now, we're spending all our times on the phone. I mean, does Picard go to the can with his his little devices? I mean, again, there's and they go to the bar. All the glasses are clearly made. All the things are made of glass. Would they really be made of glass? And there's the liquor is in glass bottles. And
what would they choose otherwise?
I don't know.
Unlike plastic, glass is least likely to make its way into your system.
But before we get into the minutia of the episode, let's hear what everyone else felt about the episode. Jonas, what did you think about Picard Season 3, Episode 1 by Terry Matalas?
I was very surprised, and if they had started with this, I would have so much hope for everything Star Trek. If they continue like this and they bring everyone together and they don't do all this stuff where they're just trying to shame legacy characters that gets so boring and has already been done, I'm hopeful that this will be a good season. Now, that being said, there are probably 8 to 10 episodes that they could stumble on the way, and they do have some opportunity here with the bad relationship, the sour relationship between Dr. Crusher and everyone else, to have some tension there that's natural and not just gender roles based. I hate to be so focused on the woke part, but that's obviously what was inherently wrong with the other seasons. I'm happy to watch this as opposed to watching it out of obligation.
Yes, perfectly said. I don't feel this is obligation TV.
I mean, I'm probably outside of, I don't know how much of a Trekkie culture really is in the end of the day, because we haven't talked too much Star Trek. I know he hasn't seen this episode. That's why he's so quiet.
I'm out of this show. I tried to watch season 1, made it through almost all of it. Well, after multiple attempts, tried to watch it with Polly because of an assignment I was given by Andre, and Polly was done after the first episode. So Picard was pretty much the defining moment for me to cut my ties with Star Trek. So at least I get to hear from y'all what you think of it going forward.
Well, and the reason I brought it up mostly was because I'm usually the most casual Trek fan on the panel.
Yeah.
I haven't even seen Deep Space Nine or Voyager in its entirety, or even more than a couple of episodes at best. So I used to, as a kid, I grew up on mostly the movies and the OG series in the background. I didn't really get into it until I was a teenager. I think, I'd watch TNG at random, but it wasn't until the movies that I was really kind of getting more into it. But even then I wouldn't consider myself a hardcore Star Trek fan. So saying that, that was probably the bigger torture of Picard. I felt bad for watching all my friends going they destroyed, my captain kind of thing. And I understood what they were saying because I liked Picard. But to me, Shatner was always the captain, so it didn't matter.
So what about the episode, Tom? Let's
talk about this. I, on the other hand, didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. What I felt like we got out of this so far is what we should have gotten to begin with, kind of what Jonas was saying, which is what everybody wanted. And that was we're going to get we're going to get the crew back together for one last adventure, which is pretty much what we had talked about for, the entirety of our reviews of the first season. It still has some issues. Whenever Raffi's on screen, I could care less. I hated the character. I'm sure they're trying to find a way to tie her in with this storyline, and I don't know what their obsession is with red shit, because we had the red matter stuff, we had the red lady in the last Discovery
Red
shit
Angel.
when it turned out to be the Red Angel.
That's
Now
right.
they're saying look for the red lady, and yeah, you were saying that too, Jonas. And it's like, so is this going to be the same thing or is it something different? It's like,
Well, they
what
already
is
resolved
that?
the red lady in that episode, so that's done.
And
Well,
thankfully,
I'm just-
it is not a suit that can travel through time.
Yes.
I was just saying, just
Sorry,
to find some
sorry for
convoluted way,
spoilers on Discovery. My goodness.
yeah, some convoluted way to tie it all together. But like, no, at that point, like those things were more distracting than anything. But once you get into, Picard, his real, when he gets the setup of all that was decent. It felt like, basically like Robert was right. It kind of feels like a TNG movie. It's a reunion film so far. I like what I'm seeing. As long as we can get away from the Raffi shit. Some of the stuff's a little telegraphed. I don't know how deep into spoilers we're getting, but
Have
as
you
a
already seen
casual
more than
Trek fan-
episode 1?
No, funnily enough, Robert hasn't offered to send me more or send me anything, to be precise. For once, this is the first time he went dead silent on that stuff with me.
Now, here's one thing that I will say that other than the woke stuff, Kurtzman coming from, I'll say his relation to J.J. Abrams and Lost and that whole, we have to do episodic, not serialized. I'm messing up my terms here.
You have
The
to
original
serialize
Star Trek.
storytelling. That's what he was doing. Yeah.
Yeah. So the original Star Trek shows were all based on the elements of the crew and their relationship to each other. You could drop in any episode and you could have missed the other 700 episodes of Star Trek that were there, and you could still basically understand what's going on. And the entertainment was in the interaction with each other and their reaction to something going on outside.
Yes.
Picard, obviously there's this great mystery that's going on, which is not something that has up until Disco, that's not been an important thing to Star Trek. And that's really what's been lacking. And if they can hold on to that idea of all these characters relating to each other, oh man, that's
the difference here, though, Jonas. And not to interrupt, but that's the difference here is we don't so much care about the mystery. It's, it's Crusher that we give a shit about, like Picard, right? Like that's
Riker.
the driving force. And Riker, of course. But yeah, like I'm just saying, because he gets the message from her and he's like, she's hurt. She used this old comm to send me this message. She cut ties with everybody. So what is going on here? Like that to me is more interesting than who cares about why so much as we need to save her. That's the driving force of these guys right now. And that's what I like. There's not just this stupid mystery box set up for no good reason.
Right.
No, the
There's
other
no
part, too,
girl
is
that's
that
the
she
key to
leaves
everything.
because she has a reason for leaving, but she doesn't burn any bridges doing it. Like that's really important.
Right.
Like they don't feel any animosity or any sort of hatred towards her. It's like she just left and that's it. Like we just haven't, we had a falling out was how it was approached. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting because now it justifies why they would, want to help her. It's not like she betrayed them by turning them over to Romulan spies where they were tortured for 3 years and it was all her fault.
Ooh.
Like, no, it was just, okay, we had a falling out, but now she's asking for help. So yeah, why not? We have all those history years behind there, pleasant memories and absent friends, but let's go do something. It was great motivation.
And actually this kind of feels like in a weird way, like an elongated beginning of a good TNG episode where you kind of get like, let's say like Geordi's off doing something and he sends a weird message to the crew and they're like, well, he's off doing this. Why is he sending this message? And well, clearly he needs help. We need to go. Well, we're supposed to go here. Well, that's too bad. We got to go save Geordi.
In
like,
many
that's kind
ways,
of what it feels like is something like that. It doesn't matter what the mystery is. It's just
in many ways, I thought this was a more entertaining and believable setup than any of the TNG movies, which I didn't like.
I agree. And that's kind of what I was just getting at, Paul, was like, it felt more like, I mean, even though it does have that filmic element to it, as far as like how it's shot and presented to us, it does have that feeling of an old TV series of the old TNG show where it's like,
but I'm saying that the movies, the TNG movies were awful. And this actually,
most people agree with that. Yes.
This actually made for me a better start to a TNG movie. When I was like Script Doctor, when they brought in Crusher, she just cut us off. Man, I would love to write a pilot episode of a show that has no history and be able to have the wherewithal to think of that as a plot element.
Well, it's basically what they're doing.
The characters internally are going, we have no idea why this character cut us off 20 years ago. And that's a believable mystery.
Yep.
Well, that's what they have here. And the beauty of it, though, Paul, is we do have the history. Yeah. But the beauty is we do have the history. And I agree, is that it is more like a show. And I even though it feels like a bit of it, like I said, an elongated version of the, little quick 3-minute intro you get before the credits, that's fine, because that's a setup for this whole season, which is hopefully going to be as satisfying as we're hoping it is after this setup, because I like how the momentum's going. I like the way the characters are interacting. It doesn't feel like the first season from what I remember, the interactions between like Riker and stuff like that, which was probably the better of the episodes at the end of the day, but it was still kind of drab and had the shadow of Picard hanging over it. Like, we have to make this super serious show about these politics and that and stuff. Cause that's what, Patrick Stewart was talking about in all the interviews and stuff. And it's like, no, all we were saying is we just want to have a fun adventure with the classic TNG crew. And that looks like what we're about to get here. And so in that respect, I'm on board. The other stuff, they could have got rid of Raffi and all that crap. I don't know if she's there.
I didn't mind Raffi. Like, what was wrong with Raffi? She played a role. It made sense.
I can tell you exactly what's wrong with Raffi. She reminds you of season 1 and season 2.
Yeah, but I never saw it.
Exactly.
So that's exactly right. You never saw them. And my take on this is, as I said before, like, this series, it shouldn't be called Picard. It should be called the android replica of the late Picard, because that's what we're fundamentally dealing with here. However, I kind of understand Terry Matalas' situation here, because he is now free reigns for the first time, or reasonably free reigns. He is still bound by some things. I am under the impression that if he had the power to undo Picard being a robot, he would do that. But he can't. What he can do is ignore it. What he can do is make it so that season 3 is a standalone thing.
Yep.
So that we can all pretend that season 1 and season 2 never happened. So if you want to, within your own head canon, you can pretend that we jump straight from Star Trek Nemesis to Star Trek Picard season 3. So within your own head canon, you can forget about season 1 and season 2. This is now a reunion thing. And after seeing the first episode, it kind of works that way. That's what I appreciated about this episode. I see what he's doing. It's something of a fresh start, something of a soft reboot, so that you can just pretend that the first 2 seasons never happened. One thing that undermines that is Raffi.
I was going to say, can I put my analyzation hat on that I do? That opening scene with him spring cleaning, that's exactly what that is.
Yeah,
Andre.
That is spring cleaning. You are right.
That is spring cleaning.
They're spring cleaning everything. And he cannot pretend undo that he's a robot, because again, this is still Kurtzman Trek. There are some limitations. It still has to look like Kurtzman Trek. It is still 25% different. However, I have always maintained that alternate license, that is not the problem. The problem has always been the storytellers and their talent, or rather lack thereof. If you had a proper storyteller, then they could work perfectly well within 25% different and still make some great Star Trek. Telly Matalas is showing us this right now in season 3. In an alternate universe where Telly Matalas had been the showrunner from day one, if he had been the one in Star Trek Discovery, we would be having a very different conversation now. Even if it was 25% different, if Terry Matalas had been in one in Star Trek Discovery, it would probably have been a proper prequel. It would have been good. Everything could have been good. We see that right now. He's doing his best here. I see what he's doing. He is trying to make it so that you can jump straight from Nemesis 2 Picard season 3, forget everything else, and you're still going to get 1 good season of Picard. I can respect that. And that's why I see what you're saying, Tom, because the Picard's housekeeper, you can just go along with, well, okay, I don't know who this character is if you jump everything else. She's just like a brand new character to you. That's Picard's housekeeper, just go with it. Much more difficult.
And that's what you told me to do, basically.
Yeah, that's what I told you when you text me. Like, who's this person? I'm like, well, this is what you need to know. Just forget about it. But then the alcoholic, that is the one thing that kind of like destroys that illusion. That and when that illusion falls apart, everything falls apart. So I wish that she would just have been written out completely, because that is one link to the last 2 episodes that precludes you from like completely accepting this as a standalone thing. And the only way that I can even remotely enjoy this is by accepting it as a completely standalone thing, because that's the only way that I can get around that this isn't the android replica of the late Picard, but the real thing. I have no interest in the adventures of the android replica of the late Picard, no matter how good everything else is. They have to make me forget about that. And the only way they can do that is to try to like canonize that this is a standalone thing. The other stuff never happened.
One thing I really loved.
And so far, I enjoyed the first episode here more than I thought I would. I heard all the hype from our friend Robert Mabonnet and everything. I was like, it can't be that good. And I was watching it. I was like, this actually is good. So yeah.
You were saying, Jonas?
No, the fact that this, when you see Picard, you see so many little Easter eggs that if you're a person that's watched all of TNG or however many times, there's that cheesy painting that was cheesy in the 1980s from the Ready Room, or maybe it was from the conference room. The flute that he picks up, that is from the time that he was in a mental prison and they made him live through someone's life and he learned how to play the flute, even though he not really a musical guy.
Light, the name of that episode.
Yeah, and the badge being that specific badge, not any of the movie badges. In the movies where everything is moodlit, which if I read this as a movie trek, I can stand the bridge having no lights on it. And the fact that he had to pick up that one uniform to get it out of the way, that red and black that they would never use again unless they were doing a flashback. It's just there was so much there to say, we promise you, we are going somewhere you will like in this.
Yeah. Someone who's also going somewhere, unfortunately, is Cultured Casino.
Yeah.
Great having you here today.
I want to say thanks for having me. I did appreciate this, especially all the talk about the Trek stuff that I'm still going to skip, even though I'm glad some folks are enjoying the 3rd season. As long as it's in focus, I hope you can enjoy it. On that note, I had a lot of fun.
It could use some more light. I will say that.
That's what I keep
Thank you,
hearing.
Culture.
You guys, I appreciate all of you. Everybody have a great day. I'm going to go prep. Peace out. Bye.
Bye, Culture.
Take care. And then Jonas, I know you're shortly going to have to leave us too. Is there any more thoughts on Picard you want to share before you do?
Me? No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was getting the call. Are you still on the live stream? No, I obviously on my channel, I'll have plenty of thoughts on season 1. That being said, I'm very much enjoying season 3. I'm hoping that they keep up with it for the rest of it. My goodness. And thank you very much for having me on. Y'all are great.
Oh, you're welcome anytime, Jonas. And thank you for hopping in here. We appreciate it.
You're the best. Bye.
Indeed.
Take care. And then I know we're going to be losing, I think, Script again, too, in a few minutes. So anything more you want to say about Picard season 1, episode 1?
I haven't said anything really about it yet. So sure.
Not really, but yeah, please tell us your feelings on it.
It was okay. It wasn't terrible. I'm looking forward to other episodes. There are a couple of points of big confusion with regards to the Titan and Riker and his relationship to that ship. I also thought something was really odd with regards to the 7 of 9 character who in the course of this series of Picard has become way more human than she has been Borg. but I don't understand why she would hold on to the name of the very species that, subjugated and manipulated and brainwashed her, and why she would be implying that she has an offense of being called her human name aboard a vessel. That was weird. But no, I think the relationships were interesting. I like the motivation. I like the character development. I suspect that the Beverly Crusher's son, who's named Jack, by the way, is probably also related to Picard. But if not, I'll be pleasantly surprised.
Because he's got a British accent?
Yes, because Americans are stupid that way. They think British accents are genetic.
Or genetic. I was just thinking the same way, that when you're born, you're born with the British accent through genetic traits.
Exactly. I was thinking that too. Like, whoa, like how does this kid have Picard's accent?
Like the only explanation I can provide for it is because in the opening scene, you're listening to a recording of the Picard's captain's logs, and maybe the kid grew up.
That's what I was thinking,
that, and that's where he picked it up. But personally, I think, and I know this because I grew up in Canada. I had a lot of friends whose parents were immigrated here, and they were first generation Canadians, and they had their parents' accent until they got older and lost it because accents are regional. Again, they're not genetic. So I would assume that this son would actually sound and probably talk with the same type of cadence that Beverly Crusher would have, because he grew up around her. And
yeah,
unless he's on some sort of British colony on the edge of Federation space, like I don't understand why you would have that. But again, for some reason, Americans think that if two people have the same accent, they must be related.
You know what? Maybe he was a British actor that just couldn't nail the American accent, and they went.
He's a British actor, yeah.
I mean, not all British actors can do American accents,
right? And I had the same feeling that Script did too. I'm like, wait a minute, it's pretty telegraphed, but the telegraph comes in the accent, and that's fucking stupid. Because like, unless there's some reason, and like I said, the only thing I could think of is like the tapes and stuff, and even that doesn't mean it's shit. Because like you said, Script, he should sound like an American, basically like his mom does, unless he spent a lot of time with Picard that we didn't know about.
Like, no, because Picard didn't recognize him and didn't know
exactly.
Didn't even realize that she had a son. So, but yeah, it lines up with her absence away. Like speculatively, you could say, "Oh, she and Picard were in a relationship," which is clearly established in that episode, and then she disappeared for 20 years, or a little bit more than 20 years. It's like, oh, I understand why. She got pregnant. She knows Picard doesn't want to be a father, so she's going to raise this child on her own. And again, there's a lot of parallels to Wrath of Khan in this episode. Now, I don't think the antagonist aspect is Wrath of Khan, but I do think the relationships between Picard, love interests, and his crew and what they're doing is very Wrath of Khan. Like they even started with in the 25th century, just like the Wrath of Khan. So did with the 23rd. That's true. So yeah, there's a lot of nods there, but I'm expecting it to go in a different direction.
And we got the ship with all the little pointy parts at the very end.
Yeah. Yes, we got the antagonist ships.
Okay, Script. What's happening? How's that going to get resolved?
I have no clue.
Oh, come on. 7 and 9. The Titan is going to come in.
The Titan. Oh, yeah.
The Titan is going to come in and pew, 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 save them.
Oh, yeah. Because he's going to be like, he wants to arrest, the captain will probably want to arrest the other captains that stole the shuttle and whatnot and hold them accountable. So
well, the captain should have sent 7 and 9 to the brig immediately. That I didn't understand. But notwithstanding that, the Titan is going to come in to rescue.
Inadvertently rescue. They're there to like arrest, and then they've realized it's going to be a rescue operation, and that's what's going to start the next part.
I did like the snotty captain of the Titan.
I really liked him because he reminds me of the type of captain that follows the strict rules of what Starfleet has, and what we get with Picard is that he kind of bends them here and there from time to time.
Oh yeah.
One thing that threw me off is that the Titan in canon is a Luna class starship, and apparently it's been refit and now it's a Neo Constitution class, which confuses me because like you can't refit an existing class into a completely new ship. And I don't know, like did the original Titan to be destroyed, then Riker got the Neo Constitution and then he retired and now it's refit? It's raises a lot of weird questions. And yeah, so there's that. I did love Sydney LaForge introduction.
Yes.
'Cause she is mentioned in All Good Things. And I like the way they did it. I also
Crash LaForge.
I love the fact that Riker he treats her more like she's family than a kid, than an ensign or a cadet or an
Yeah,
officer.
like they embarrass her like an uncle. Yeah, that was kind of cute.
I was like, that's awesome because and that's also very reflective of Star Trek Generations when Kirk meets Hikaru Sulu's daughter Demora on the Enterprise B. So yeah, there's a lot of nods to this stuff to really try and warm the hearts of the Star Trek fans, and I think it's all right. I mean, again, I hate the lighting, and
Lighting is terrible.
Yeah, the lighting is horrible.
and the uniforms are still very cheap. Like, oh boy,
yeah, they're kind of
Yeah.
weird looking.
I mean, I think the design is fine. It's just that they look like they're made out of cheap material. They don't look like they were made to be tailored to the actors that are wearing
Yeah.
them, especially
know.
7 and 9.
I don't know if maybe it's because they're shooting digitally instead of on film like they used to. I don't think that's the cause, but yeah, some just don't look right about them. And
Well, they're not tailored to the actor. That's the obvious part.
the material part I meant, like, because it looks like a
It looks like they're made out of like solid curtains.
I'll have to
Yeah.
take a look. I didn't notice that at all.
But no, that's all interesting because, like I said, I did notice that too. I didn't want to jump to the spoiler about the kid thing because I mean, well, technically he's not a kid in quotations, but I mean, obviously the implication that
You're talking
it's
about Jack?
Picard's kid, but yeah,
Yeah.
If it is Picard's kid, we are not 100% certain yet, but I mean, we're probably right.
That's why I said
I'm guessing
implication,
that
but
it's
yeah.
Picard's kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I meant by telegraphed stuff and some of the other things. But yeah, no script. I didn't completely notice I noticed a few of the nods to Wrath of Khan, but then when you really laid it out like that, especially with the kid aspect, I was like, oh yeah, duh.
Oh, yeah. There's another nod where Picard asks for Seven to take them out of space dock, and then she uses 1/4 impulse, which is against regulations, and that's a nod to Star Trek 6. But no one on the bridge crew brings up that you can't use impulse in space dock. So that was I was.
What are you supposed to use?
Thrusters only.
Ah, that's another sexual reference they were trying to avoid.
Nerds. No,
Yep.
just kidding.
Thrusters. Thrusters is one level down from impulse.
Yeah. So yeah, thrusters is what you kind of have on the space shuttle, and
Yeah, the little
and then
air.
impulse is kind of like an Orion drive. It's a nuclear reaction that pulses out, and it has a little bit of a fallout, and you can get up to pretty close to, but not quite light speed, and then after that it's warp, and that's my Star Trek nerd knowledge.
Yeah, that's there you go.
Yeah, see, this is what I was saying here, because like this is what I was thinking, because to the types of lighting and stuff and things they used to do for film would look completely different on film. But yet, I've noticed things that they do still like the same way with that when they shoot it with digital, it looks like it's not meant to look.
Well, it's because they can do it in digital that they never could before. Digital has got such a wide dynamic range compared to film.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, it captures things differently. That's my whole point, right? Like,
Not only that, you can shoot way longer on digital than you can on film. You're limited to that reel, and that reel's expensive over time.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not making that part of the argument, but I'm just saying it's like, okay, so an example of like if you see a very unlighted, undoctored picture of Henry Cavill in the original Superman suit, you can tell those are like fake muscles and all that shit, but the way it's lit and all that kind of stuff, the way they manipulate it, it's supposed to look right. We've talked about that before. It's kind of the same thing here. Like when you used to do film, you used to have to light it a certain way and you would do things a certain way. It would look different and it would translate differently on film than the way it does when you shoot it with digitally, especially with all the lighting and stuff is different and stuff is.
You can make digital look like a film shoot. It all has to do with
if you have the right people behind it to know what they're doing. Yes, that's the other
right
thing.
lenses, right lighting scheme. Yeah.
Yep.
But that's where I could see as a downfall, and that's a nitpicky thing. But at the same time, like again, with the Raffi business, like I'm sorry, Paul, you don't understand how bad. And then making her like drug addled in that first bit too was like really weird to us who have seen the shit.
Well, she's in recovery and she's around a world that's tempting her to break that recovery.
But clearly, she's in some kind of undercover scheme here.
Correct.
So that,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, she takes a minor
Is that
role.
something that's set up in season 2, or is that something we have no idea what she's doing yet?
Well, she's on
Yeah,
she's in recovery in season 2. She's in a
Okay.
relationship with Seven, and then I guess they broke up.
Oh, okay. All right. See, now that gives me some context there, but I didn't need the rest of it. But I mean, that's the thing. I'm I'm muddied with this.
Seven girl crazy.
Yes.
Well,
Not really crazy. She just liked Rafi.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
She's
not
clearly
any other woman.
she's clearly the dom, though.
Yeah, who isn't married to a woman that hasn't had several lesbian relationships? I mean, come on.
Come on.
Well,
A
there's
lot of women have gone to
college.
college over the last several decades. So of
I was
course
gonna
it's
say
that.
there is college, duh. I mean,
As long as you
nowadays
let
it's high
me
school,
watch.
but yeah.
I gotta go,
And,
guys.
Yeah,
Aw.
likewise. I got ahead.
You're being left alone, Andre and Tom,
Yeah, well,
course we are.
on your way out.
well, I think we'll manage. I think we are mostly done. We said everything that can be said about the first episode. I have one more point I'd like to add there, but before then, just want to say thanks to both of you for joining. It's been an absolute blast as always.
It's always fun to join you on this show and learn stuff.
I don't see any necessarily specifically for either of you guys, but I thought maybe Paul might want to comment on this real quick on his way out the door. But script, I don't know if you do either, but if you have to leave us first, go ahead. But
Yes, I do have to go. So yes, I'll bid you all farewell. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll catch you all later. And thanks so much.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. So but Paul, what are your thoughts on Susan resigning?
CO92 curious about what's your thoughts on the news of Susan Wojcicki, Mama Susan, resigning as CEO of Twitter or YouTube. Why did I say Twitter?
I don't think it's as big a deal as everyone's making it out to be. First of all, congratulations to her for running a mammoth property and watching it evolve. I've been on it for 7 years, and I saw the beginnings of the tools that were being made available to creators. At the very beginning, so many of the tools were scattered all over an absolutely horrible interface. I don't know, not too many people talk about that, but it has now been coherently assembled. There's been nothing else. There's nothing else out there like it. The creative, the tools that are available to the content creators in terms of checking your stats, when to upload, who's watching what, when, and then now they've added shorts and just so many different ways to promote and expand your the reach of your channel is extraordinary. And the fact that if you choose to respond to your commenters and make it a much more personal experience, you can do that also. There are some, obviously, there was the adpocalypse, but on the other hand, I think they were dealing with a whole bunch of old legacy code. Now, I tend to be sympathetic because I'm in the IT business, and I don't think people have any concept of moving away from a whole bunch of old crappy code to a new system based on something better. Invariably, that switchover is always a disaster, no matter what your best efforts are. But they seem to have managed it. The people are complaining about the fact that you can't use the F word all the time anymore. Quite frankly, when I came on board YouTube, the biggest YouTubers were dropping it like every second word, and their channels were huge. I found it tiresome, to be quite honest. It looks like the main stream corporations like NBC, ABC, whatever, they seem to be dominating now. The pages, the recommendation pages to watch Kimmel and all their properties. Yes, I understand that. I'm disappointed by that. But on the other hand, YouTube is not stopping any independent creator from coming on board, creating a channel, getting it monetized, and then it's up to us to work as hard as we can to make it successful. So stay within the rules, make it family friendly. Who cares? It should be all about the content, not about you swearing. So there's nothing else out there like it. And I come from broadcast with a lot of gatekeepers. There's no gatekeeper here. You do what you need to do, and you do your own promotion, you do your own thumbnails, you do your own Photoshop work, or in my case, Affinity, because I got rid of all the Adobe shit. But to me, this is the most fun I've had in an awful long time, and the fact that you can create something, write it, perform it, edit it, upload it, and then you're on to the next thing is also very, very exciting. So this is a system that is only limited by your imagination. And I've seen a massive change. So if Susan was responsible and behind that massive change, then, we all need to celebrate her successes and not spend all our time talking about the stuff that people like to complain about. It's Big Brother. But on the other hand,
I was going to say, I
look
don't
at
know
it,
how
it's
much.
an amazing technical
Couple of
achievement.
things that people are complaining about. Tom, you want to take it away, because there are.
I was going to say, a point I've made in the past is I don't know about the gatekeeping part or so much the censorship part, because it's weird. There's still stuff I can say on here that I could never say on the radio. But there's tons of stuff that I could talk about on the radio that I could never talk about here, which is weird.
It's weird, totally weird.
But at the same time, as far as I have a very short take on this whole thing, as far as my limited knowledge of what went down, I think this has more to do with her health and will probably, more than anything else, I'm more worried about who the new Daddy Susan is going to be and how bad he's going to be or she going to be, because I think it's a guy who's coming in now, or at least in the interim until they get a new CEO. But it kind of felt like to me from the announcement it was more health related than anything, unless there's something major that we hear about that we didn't know about.
Everyone is looking into conspiracies, and the thing is, she's been involved with the thing for 10 plus years. I mean,
right.
Like, I'm done. What's the
I also
response?
think that she has some limited power. Like many of the things that are her credit, or that has happened under her watch, I don't know how much of that she decided versus how much she was the person to merely execute. That thing came from higher up. To your point, Paul, YouTube is an amazing platform. It was already, in my experience, like she's been here longer than I have, but I would say that it's more difficult to be a content creator now than it was just a few years ago. And that is very much so because of, as an independent voice, you have a voice, but you are kind of being deboosted compared to corporate voices, let's say. And also there absolutely are some, you have to play by the rules. Like one family friendly is one thing, but like, for instance, you also have to abide by certain narratives and the science, which retrospect has shown was always pseudoscience and outright anti-scientific, but you still had to abide
well, not
by
just that, or whatever political narrative of the day, right? Like, it's not just that. Like, and that's kind of my point that I was saying too, is like, how is it I could never say, filth, farm, filth on the radio. But I mean, if somebody gave me a report about this or that's going on in the news or in certain states, like right now, I wouldn't have to worry about being censored because I'm just reading the news or talking about the news, especially as long as I put in front of it that is my feelings, right? In this case here, in this channel, on this not this channel, but this platform, we've had situations where we have to watch what we're talking about because we know we're going to get slapped with this or slapped with that, or
we've had
down or ripped down
and demonetized because one went a little bit too far in expressing common sense opinion. Now, I'm not saying that that's Susan's fault. I really don't.
I'm too afraid to even give examples. That's my point, right? Like,
yeah,
I know what you mean.
And I have like she's done fine, I guess. I don't know.
You're right, Paul.
I don't know what were her decisions and what was she merely there to execute. What I will say is that for all its flaws, YouTube still ain't all that bad. It is absolutely one of the more neutral platforms. I mean, just look at Twitter pre-Musk. YouTube was never that bad. It was never it was never the kind of craziness that we've saw other places. That it absolutely was not. Still, I am worried about what the new boss is going to be, because
That's
is
what
the
I was
new
saying,
boss
yeah.
going to be someone that is like her? Is he going to be more? We need to.
He was in charge of the censorship team.
Ooh.
What was that?
He was in charge of the censorship team.
Oh God. Okay, we're going to miss.
I don't really like that already. Yeah.
No,
that's in his name. Is like, oh God, he sounds like.
Means that they found an ideologue to
but
run the show.
I think YouTube knows that its bread and butter is the independent producers and the creativity they bring to the system, because the volume of views that we get.
I'd like to believe that, Paul.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I would like to believe that.
Yeah.
Again, the mere fact that they have monetized people who are under the monetizable threshold, or at least they are putting ads on people's streams that have not hit a monetizable level, which they didn't before. Like if you didn't,
they collect that money for themselves.
They wouldn't put ads on your channel, but now they have. It just shows the importance of the independent producer.
Yeah, I do hope that the new boss is going to realize that. But if they elevated the boss of the censorship team, that has me real worried.
Well, he's only VP. They haven't made a new CEO yet. If there's going to be
right. That's why I said the Interium at this point, Daddy. I'm just going to call him Daddy Susan for now.
Yeah.
But again, looking at it from an IT coder perspective, the changes they've made have been mammoth. I remember how it was before, how horrible the interface was, the number of different places you had to go to in the system to get to the stuff that you want. The fact that at some point they decided to make it a creator-centric service, that was a phenomenal moment in time. I don't know when it happened, but the tools are great. I mean, the networks don't have, probably internally, the networks don't have tools like this that we have available to ourselves. And if we hunker down, learn the tools, it's extraordinary what you're able to do. So,
absolutely, I agree completely with that.
So, yeah, with all the bad things on the side, but keep your nose clean, have a good, keep a good channel. I mean, it should be all about the creativity and not necessarily making channels that rail against certain government activities. There's a lot of positive things that people can be doing, like a fishing channel.
Yeah, that one is gonna
and the other important thing is the best showbiz industry news is happening on Twitter. I mean, on YouTube and Twitter, and this is unheard of. I mean, the mainstream Hollywood press would love to have the level of authenticity that we have.
It's changed the game completely. I mean, I agree. Like, this is the future, and that's why I would hope that that the new CEO won't change things too much, because as it is right now, Google is going to outcompete every news channel, every late night talk show. I mean, they're all dinosaurs. They're all on their last leg. They've all lost the favor of the audience. They just don't know it yet.
Even on a personal level, from somebody who actually worked in broadcasting, right? Like, it trips my brain to sit here and think about right now, in this very moment, we probably have more people listening to us than I ever did on that radio station being live, even though it might have been more, it might have been a little less. I wouldn't have had a clue because I don't know, but now I can actually see and I can interact with those people in the chat. That is the number one thing too that I think is a big difference between this and any other thing before. And that's where I think you're right, Paul, on so many levels, as far as you can do just about anything. You can create anything. Like, I love your skits, for instance, is a great example of, you put so much work into it. And I could tell, especially that last one, and I'm not like, even trying to kiss your ass on it in any way, shape or form.
Please don't go ahead. I don't mind.
No, I could tell the work you put into it. and you deserve all the praise you're getting. It's not just some backhanded, YouTuber bullshit that I'm giving you here. It takes a lot of work to do that kind of stuff, and frankly, I'm impressed by it, and I would love to do more stuff like that myself, but it's time consuming, and that's the other thing is that's the toughest thing too on Andre's point. I do see is that they have made it a job, and you hit all those notes in that recent video so well that it's interesting. You said you'd like almost the absolute opposite to a point, but it's like you do understand on another level of what it is at the same time. So I'm like, yes, it's a tough job, but if you're somebody who can dedicate yourself to it and you love to entertain people and talk to people and talk about the things we're talking about, and you're passionate about them like we are, then you might have a chance at making it in this industry, especially if it has nothing to do with what we're doing right now.
And
right?
and it is true that YouTube can become a crappy job if you are afraid to leave it, if you start doing it 52 weeks a year, multiple days a year, and you're just paranoid about losing views and subscribers. YouTube is for many people,
harsh mistress.
Yes. Yeah. It's crack. YouTube can be crack for a lot of people, unfortunately.
Well, and what I mean by like doing what we're doing right here is like whenever anybody asks me like any advice about YouTube, my first bit of advice is don't. Especially now, and I'll explain why, because like Andre said earlier, it used to be a lot easier than it is now. But my real advice ends up being do what you love. Like make a channel of whatever it is that you love the most and are the most passionate about, not necessarily movies or TV or whatever like we do, because this is an oversaturated market already. But if you can find some new niche in that or something else completely, you'll have a better shot, because chances are you don't know what's going to be the next thing, right? That people are looking for on YouTube, and you could be the next big YouTuber because you're talking about thingamajigs, and thingamajigs become big.
But the other thing to remember, it could take you 5 years before you figure it out.
That's what I mean. Like, yeah, just one day out of the blue. Boom.
Most people bail after 2 years.
Sadly, yeah.
Well, that sounds about right.
And I didn't figure this out until a year ago. And I was on it for 4 years and then went, okay. But I'm an experimenter and I didn't really care. And I was enjoying myself just doing my own little world. And I came up with a new little world that other people liked. So you don't stop. If you quit, you lose, as they say.
Yeah. It was the same thing with the Critical Drinker. He was actually also on YouTube for several years.
He was.
Before he created the Critical Drinker character, and that's when he took off.
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of the same with me. Like I was just meandering through different things until Andre found me, basically, and then
but if you're not doing something, if you're not making yourself available, then no one will see what you're doing. Art that nobody sees is not art. If you're not putting one foot in front of the other, you're never going to reach Rome. I mean, the key to anything in life is to make yourself valuable, so you're valuable to somebody else. And how do you do that? Well, you put yourself out there. You learn your craft. You try to get better at what you're doing, and you're in a continuous state of learning and improvement. And that's not bad. But like as my sketch discussed, what happens another 15 years from now, when there's a generation of people who have left school, gone into YouTube immediately, made a reasonable living out of YouTube, and then the kids are going, well, when are you going to the salt mines? How come you never went to a real job? Is this a real job? I mean, to me, I find it strange.
Yeah, it's but you know what? It's a new thing.
It is,
and I think it's going to be much more of it as changes in society otherwise just reduces the number of available jobs elsewhere. I think many are going to be forced into some kind of content creation due to a sheer lack of options.
And I have this visual in my head where I've got a shot from a bank building looking down at one of the main streets of Toronto, and everybody is walking along the street like this. Everybody, every single person is walking down the street talking to their camera. That I have that visual. One day I'm going to shoot it where everyone is vlogging. There's no other work, no other meaningful work left.
Of course, the challenge with that, of course, is that not everyone is going to be successible, and there's going to be like as many challenges and stuff as there are people.
But
so,
listen, how is that different? Okay, it is no different from show business or acting or anything. The number of people who are trying to make a career of just acting or music, and the number of people who then get their first gig at a bar and then are able to, get a slightly bigger gig and maybe get discovered by somebody, or you're a Justin Bieber that gets discovered, who was it, Oprah or whatever on your YouTube channel. And then the chances of these things happening are very, very slim, yet there's no end of people willing to take that risk. That's never going to change. How many people, like the Hollywood stars, they're less than the 1%ers insofar as all the people who are trying to make a living acting in North America. I mean, what are they? Like 0.01%, 0.001%, yet it doesn't stop people from trying. It's weird. So don't be daunted by the fact there's so many channels. There's people dropping out all the time. You could be the one that replaces one of the dropouts, because
you could be the one.
And if you buy my course, I will show you how you too can be YouTube star. I show you in 10 easy steps, $100. Send
Call
my
1-800 get Chato now. Thank you so much, Paul, for being here, and thank you, the CO92, for this bringing this up today, because I don't think this wasn't on the docket necessarily, but I was curious to hear Paul's take on it from his CEO perspective and tech and IT perspective or whatever. But yeah, all right. So thank you so much, Paul. Take care of yourself.
So bye, guys. I'll let you close down the shop for today.
All right. Take care.
Bye, Andre. Bye, Tom.
Of course, we're not going to close down shop just yet. We still have a few more.
Yes, we have super chats to go through. Yes, we do. Cranberry Crunch sent this in way earlier, and sorry it took us this long to get to it. We're saving the Picard super chats until we got to the topic at hand. It says, Picard season 3, episode 1 is mediocre and inoffensive. Those that have seen 6 through 10 episodes have a narrative advantage over us who saw only 1. Willing to watch to figure out if TM can Terry Metalis can helm a proper series, but it still tastes of Alex Kurtzman Trek. I get what you're saying here, Cranberry Crunch. Yes.
Yeah, of course that's going to be unavoidable because it's still made under the same contract, so there's no way it's not going to do that. So yeah, fair opinion, and we have a counter opinion to that as well by Jimmy Touchdown, who says for $5, Picard season 3 sucked. Now, have you seen all episodes or just the first? So many logic flaws and so much disrespect for TNG and Star Trek universe in episode 1. Can't believe the number of shills hyping it up. Now, I would be careful about throwing around the term shills. I mean, there's a lot of fans that
I'm waiting for my check.
That have been severely browbeaten and everything by several years or actually a decade and a half's worth of shit.
And I understand both sides of this. Yeah, like I understand the side of this to where it's like you don't want to support it at all because Kurtzman Trek is what got us here to begin with, or JJ Trek to begin with, to hear whatever. And that's totally fair, and I respect anybody who feels that way. But I also believe in, rewarding what is good, right? And you have to send messages that way because they don't listen any other real way. Money talks and bullshit walks. Numbers talk, and that's what they give a shit about. If this is good and this is bigger than any of the other shows that were before, they'll take a look at it and they'll go, why is this something that's so much more, talked about and viewed and beloved than this other shit we did? Then maybe they'll get the fucking hint.
Data
See,
point.
that's it's called a
there's
data point.
two sides of it. There are two sides to this, and so we're never going to say you must watch this or you must not watch this. We will never do that. We always say that your viewing behavior is essentially a vote, and that's fine. But you have to know what you're voting for. And in the case of Star Trek Picard Season 3, there's actually two opposing sides here. One or two opposing factors at the same time. One is that by watching it legally and straight from Paramount Plus, you are actually providing a data point. And that data point is, now suddenly Terry Matalas came in, and now things are good. We're actually liking this. And I heard some rumors here. I don't know if it's accurate. I haven't been able to vet this yet. But I heard some rumors that Paramount may be behind some of the changes here. Not Kurtzman, but Paramount may be experimenting, saying that let's try going back to the older and see what happens. If that is true, then that data
we did kind of see
all
that.
the more important.
Yeah, I was gonna say we did kind of see that with the Playmates toys announcement and how those things were handled. And Jonas brought up that logo in the beginning. That logo has been popping up everywhere. Yes, this is a new. Yeah. They clearly had some new. For those who saw the South Park will know what I'm getting into. A new branding manager come in and check it out, and they gave it a new once over. And they're like, "This is what you need to do. You need to differentiate between classic Trek because that's what people like, and this one other year." And that's what Andre's saying basically is they set themselves up now, so they actually have the data points to go by. See, because before we had a lot of just people griping into the wind. And Kurtzman and JJ doing what they were doing, and they couldn't really assess this because there was nothing else to put it up against, right? Strange New Worlds and Picard were a little bit different. Plus, now they're actually getting into classic Trek toys and other things more, and they're re-releasing the films again. Believe you me, those are data points too. How many people watched the Star Trek Motion Picture Director's Edition compared to Discovery? They're going to pay attention to those kind of things too. So all these things make a difference. So as we say here at Midnight's Edge, you vote with your wallet, right? At the end of the day, you can cancel everything you want. And at that point, you just become a statistic. I mean, the most we can do is tell you when you cancel something, if they give you the option to ask why you canceled, tell them why. And at least they get maybe a data point out of it. Because other than that, you just become a statistic at that point. And I'm not going to say anybody should watch Picard Season 3. That would technically make me a shill, but I would also have to get paid for it, which I'm not. So, like, that's the other thing. So, like, at this point, I get there's a lot of people that are passionate about this on both sides, and I respect both sides' feelings on it, but I think we need to back off on the shill stuff and all that kind of stuff, just out of respect.
Yeah. There's very, very little can be done, and very little good can come from it. All I will say is like that's divide and conquer. And I understand that there's many nasty feelings around, but I think that we should focus on what unites us and our love for Trek in general, and then one can agree to disagree with how that is expressed, but let's not make enemies out of each other because there's no reason at all for that. And also, so yes, I said like watching this is actually a data point that is very beneficial for the future of Trek, especially if there are new brand managers, because then now they've done something right. And if you reward that, you just might get more of it. Now, the counter argument is that I've heard also reports that Alex Kurtzman is kind of out, as late as out as he possibly can be, given that he's still locked in with the secret hideout and everything. If this is a huge, huge hit, can he then use this to maneuver himself to say that, oh, look at that success, now you must renew me? Yes. There's that side of it too. There is that side of it too. So that's why I mean, here you have two opposing things. You have a data point, which is really valuable. Plus, if it's a massive hit, Alex Kurtzman can use it to stay latched onto the Trek game. But again, this is going to depend on who is managing Trek at Paramount. And if they have some new people there, and they have seen that what Kurtzman has done the last 10 years, it's not working. Now we try to do something different. That might be the new direction. We don't know, but I would still say that if they get a data point showing that this is the right direction, there's value in that, regardless of anything else.
Well, we need to move on to more super chats, but no, I agree with everything you're saying, Andre. And at the same time, like it just anyway, we'll just keep moving here. But yeah, Picard season 3 was done with bosses knowing it's okay, Mr.
Without bosses knowing,
knowing,
okay.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was gonna get to anyway. Was like we labor under the idea that Star Trek is a lot bigger than it really is. That's part of the problem. To Paramount, on their grand scheme of things, it is a big deal to a point, but not in a sense that we think it is. And this is why I said Clarice was the bigger deal. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, because that was meant to be a big prestige series for CBS, which is the fucking network, right? Star Trek is on like Paramount Plus. That's the level where Star Trek is at now, whether it was JJ's fault that it got there or it was Kurtzman's fault at the end of the day, because we all know why it's there to begin with, but we know where it's at now because of them. And really, frankly, it was never that much bigger than anything before. That was what Emma Watts was trying to say, right? She's like, we were going under the impression that you could turn Star Trek into $1 billion franchise. You can't. It's not that accessible to the general masses. But what you can do is make good Trek for that specific audience. And at that point, they knew they needed to cut the budgets and make shit that the actual Trek fans were going to like. So that's what I'm seeing more of now. Because to me, Clarice was the sticking point. They didn't give a shit how much Kurtzman was fucking up Star Trek. It was when he fucked up Clarice is when they really got pissed. So as far as Star Trek, that's more of like a side effect, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Because if he's out the door, it has more to do with that than anything. Because he's done nothing but destroy Star Trek, and they have let him do it. And then instead of listening to Emma Watts, they just booted her out the door. The only thing they got right now, though, is they got that Robbins guy who's the head of the studio now. And I like his style, and I like the way he thinks, because he thinks a lot like Zaslav and some of these other guys, where it's like, we need to make shit people want to see. And if there's going to be some shit you may not like, and if you don't like it, don't watch it. We're not going to censor things. They've had movies like Top Gun and other things that are good data points for a studio to have. And I think that's kind of where this thing is at. Like, as far as Kurtzman Trek goes, Kurtzman's only going to do whatever. I don't think he has as much to do with shit as we think he does. From what I've heard, he's more obsessed with his Section 31 show that's never going to happen.
Exactly. Like, he's done, like, they know that he's done fucked up. And if Picard season 3 does good without him, they're going to know that even more acutely.
Yeah. And yes, Kurtzman and Goldsman are a nightmare couple, but Goldsman's like the lesser of two evils, basically.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, he doesn't deliberately, like, his whole thing is he thinks he's cooler than he is. But, like, yeah. Anyway, Miguel Farah says, some people defend Star Trek Picard, saying we used to complain about bad TNG. However, TNG also had good episodes. Yeah. Look, I know there's a lot of revisionist history that goes down with TNG. The real truth of the matter is there was a good portion of the OG Trek fans who were very pessimistic about a new Star Trek without the OG cast when it first came out. And they were a bit resistant to TNG. But it was a pretty big hit. In fact, it was one of the first huge straight to syndication shows, probably arguably since Masters of the Universe, I'd be willing to bet by looking by numbers. So in that sense, like, it started this whole new trend. It was because of Star Trek The Next Generation we got shows like Baywatch and all these other straight to syndicated shows that became these big, huge, like, event shows. And it took its time to find its footing, but I mean, some of the best episodes are in those first 2 seasons and stuff. But yes, there was some fan discourse around it. But I don't remember there being people like flat out disliking it or holding it. How do I put this? Like finding the flaws in it that they were with Picard and Discovery, for instance.
No,
right?
that's completely rewriting of history.
Yeah, I mean, there were some people who were a little, resistant to certain things, but Gene Roddenberry being on board, I think, helped a lot of people ease into the TNG era.
There was never, ever the kind of resistance that there's been against Kurtzman Trek. Ever. And anyone that tries to tell you it was is lying.
Yeah, because the kind of numbers that original TNG got, like, that's the kind of stuff they've been trying to aspire to get ever since. That's the thing we need to remember. Right, that's the bar that they kind of have been going by, because the JJ movie was an inflated number of a film, like it was inflated on all ends. So TNG, when they were in their prime, it had what 20 million viewers on an average per episode. Somebody tell me in the chat. I think it's between 20 and 25 million. In its height, maybe less than that, 19, something like that. But yeah, once you get to things like they canceled Enterprise because it only had 4 million viewers in that last season. And we know for a fact that Discovery and all these other shows haven't come close to touching that until you get to Picard, which actually did get, I believe it was like between 5 and 6 million viewers for the first few episodes of the first season. Then they dropped like a rock. At least that's my recollection of the numbers. If somebody knows better, please correct me in the chat or send it to me. But yeah, anyway, Miguel also says that TNG had only one character we all wanted to throw out the airlock and never mentioned again. That's true. Although it took some time, I know some people to warm up to Tasha Yar. I know that. And that one doctor, too. Don't forget about that one doctor.
Dr. Pulaski.
Yeah. That was another one I remember people weren't too big of fans of. Lord Pepsi says, with Ant-Man, don't underestimate the normies. However, normie numbers will show that what is versus a full normie and comic crowd should be. Great job, y'all. Okay, I think I know what you're saying here. So yeah, like we were kind of saying, Ant-Man will have a respectable opening, but it won't be nearly what it should be, basically. Bamagrad says, I will pass on your words to Martin Cove. I almost forgot. All 4 Lord of the Rings hobbits will also attend. I will also shill them about Midnight's Edge in the morning. Well, thank you. I don't know if they'll all agree with us all the time, but yeah.
Yeah, but much appreciated.
But as far as Martin Cove go, let him know that we have been in contact with some of his people. We just haven't been able to crack through that. So, yeah.
Do mention Shadow Chaser, though. We'd love to talk some Shadow Chaser with him.
Yes, indeed. Then we got Pinochet's Helicopter Tours, who's been a member for 18 months. It says, for global fascist socialism to succeed, everything associated with the past must be offensive. Mao did the same thing for those who missed history class.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to do right now.
Basically, that's a nutshell. I was going to say, it's
a remake of the Cultural Revolution.
Then you've got Star Wars Community says, I found Picard was okay, much better. Yeah, I mean, again, like I was up and down with it at times, but at the end of the episode, I was kind of like, all right, I want to see more of this. And that's kind of a litmus test, right?
Exactly. I mean, there's many episodes still to go. It can turn out good, can turn out bad, but as you said, Tom, you want to see more, and that's more than what can be said about season 1, where we basically, after the first episode, were screaming for mercy and no more.
You had to basically force me to watch them by the end.
Yeah, I was like, it was suffer through it alone.
Yeah, it was dragging me into this shit. It's like, do I have to?
Well, I didn't make you watch season 2. I mean, give me some credit for that.
You almost did, though. You kept fucking threatening me.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, this is true. I need this video today, or you watch Star Trek. Like,
not exactly, but yeah, you kept threatening with a review, and we're like, is there any interest in it? And thank God there really wasn't. So,
yeah.
Dear Ron
that's the reason why we didn't do it. No one cared.
Yeah, and then I think it was Paulie that punked out on the whole other experiment that we were going to do. So that's kind of
like it was too much for him.
That was what Culture was talking about earlier, for those who may not know.
Yeah.
Duroan sends in €2 and says, happy Friday, everybody, with some love. Thank you so much, Duroan. And then we've got OC Giggin. OC Giggin sends in 5 and says, anyone see Beast with Idris Elba, non-woke, protects his daughters who respect him. A white guy dies helping them all, in no way humiliated, at 8 out of 10. No, I did not see it because I heard mostly middling reviews of it at the time.
Maybe that's why.
And maybe that's why I was just going to say. But the other thing that turned me off of from the trailers was that just how CG everything looked. But you know what? If it pops up on Netflix or something, and I have nothing else to watch, maybe I'll check it out. Thank you for the recommendation. You haven't seen it, I take it, Andre?
No, I have not. But
so.
It would be interesting to check out now when I've heard this.
Yep.
I would not be surprised if that's the cause for the bad reviews.
Could be. Mega J says Stewart basically turned Picard into self-insert. Yeah, literally.
He did, yeah.
Yeah, Jesus Davila gifted a Midnight's Edge membership. Thank you so much. Scott McKenzie is a new member. Thank you so much, Scott. Then we got Uber B-Man who says, I've been postulating that Crusher gave birth to his new son during TNG Season 2 when she was away. His age matches up. The actor is 34 in real life. Well, interesting.
This is very good postulation.
There you go. The only thing, like, again, I had the same issue that scripted. I'm like, do they really have him having the same accent? Seriously? Like, that was my first thought. So I'm like, it's clearly his kid. And like you said, Andre, it's a nice tie to Nemesis, right? Like,
yeah,
especially age-wise and all that business. And they got a kid who kind of looks like a good, yeah, anyway.
And it's also a really good tie to generations. He's not going to be the last Picard.
Yes, exactly. And then Uber B-Man says, I've been postulating that, oh yeah, we got this all right. Oh, so thank you so much, and that's true. We got Jason Milton, who's a new member, and says, Ant-Man 3 is not good. Do you all think that it was Feige's fault by not stepping down after Phase 3 and passing it to Gunn? Well, he was never going to pass it to Gunn, but what Gunn was supposed to do was help him. That we're technically supposed to get two different, not timelines, but universes or whatever you want to call it, even though they were in the same...
different focal points.
Yes, thank you. I was trying to think of a way to explain it without making it sound like they're two separate things, because basically Feige was supposed to concentrate on the multiverse side, while Gunn was supposed to kick things off with Guardians 3, get into the cosmic side of things. And now that we saw them just kind of meander through Phase 4, we're finally starting to see that separation here in Phase 5, kicking off with the Secret Wars and all that, I bet. But it's not going to be what they initially planned. So that was the original plan. But as far as like having Gunn take over the Marvel universe as a whole, I think that would have been a better idea at the end of the day. And then there's a little bit more to that. And says, but since they fired Gunn and pissed him off to DC, should Feige leave? Well, it's interesting because I sent Andre a story here this morning as we were on the show about some comments that Feige had made, I guess, or something to that effect, that he may have designs in a bit upper management role, but I don't know if I believe that at this point. But that wouldn't necessarily mean he's leaving, but that would mean he'd move out of the role he's in, leaving somebody like Victoria Alonso to take his place or something to that effect. What do you think, Andre?
I absolutely can see that Kevin Feige is starting to consider other options at this time, as long as there are better options, and moving higher up in the hierarchy at Disney, which is the rumor. I can absolutely see there being merit to such a rumor.
Yeah.
Especially since like this Marvel thing right now isn't working. The only thing is that I think that he would rather, he'd probably wish that he had left already or tried to fix it before he goes, because otherwise he'd be leaving a sinking ship, and that's going to be part of his history and legacy too.
Mr. Tickle Trunk says they broke every rule of woke storytelling. If you're talking about Picard, there's a few that they did, if you're right about that, because they didn't give him a daughter, first of all. And there's a couple other ones in there, maybe, if that's what you're referring to. And then Max Relax sends in €6. It says, what are your thoughts on the ship design of the Titan? I thought it looked very TN, like kind of like the Enterprise, very much.
Was it not like a Constitution class or something, like a
I'm not into all that kind of
Constitution class or something? Because actually, the original Enterprise, that was Constitution class. So that means that they would have retrofitted it as a tribute to the original Enterprise without having to give us an Enterprise F. I like it. I approve. Again, to me, this is more of Terry Matalas trying to do right with it. So I'm perfectly happy with that.
Yeah, and STR Red Wolf, this was actually something for script. Sorry we missed this, but talking about that in general, says refitting into a new class happens in real life. MARC train, DC Baltimore commuter train had EMD GP40 WH2 engines, which got rebuilt into MP32P HQ engines for Florida's Sunrail service. I don't know if that was in relation to that, but since it was bringing up engines, I thought I'd jump to that.
Yeah. Well, we'll make sure that Scripps gets it.
Yes. Then EBA unit says, I will never give P-Hard 3 a single view because I won't allow Kurtzman to come roaring back from its potential success. Without respect, we reject.
Yeah, and that's a fair point of view.
It's a fair point of view, and it's a very big possibility. But yeah, at this point, I mean, this is a dead end because we know this is the last season. There's no more to go from here. But yeah. Then Karam sends us in $4.99, and it didn't say anything, but thank you so much, Karam. And then we've got
no, there was one there.
Oh, here's one here. For $4.99. It says, Andre, if you get the opportunity to buy Mythical PS5 to play stuff like God of War 4 as well as God of War Ragnarok, would you?
Yes and no. I would. If given the opportunity, I would get a Mythical PlayStation 5. Would I play much God of War 4 and God of War Ragnarok? I'd try them, but I'd probably suck. I'd probably be tired of it. I'd probably be like, what the hell is this shit? Within 45 seconds, throw it away and never pick it up again. That's the more likely course of action. And then instead, I'm going to put in like some PlayStation 4 games, which are more my kind of games. Like, for instance, I'd get like this new Turtles thing. I'd get that. I'd play some Mortal Kombat. I'd play some Street Fighter. I'd played some, what else is on there? I'd play some Asterix games, which are like European exclusives. I mean, the most recent one is also like a 2D fighter, so that's pretty cool. And so yeah, I'd play like and some Rayman. I'd play like basically spruced up retro games. Yeah, I do that. Totally.
I can already predict that when we do get some kind of Midnight's Edge gaming going, you and I playing games is going to be some of the most watched shit we got. Because we are two of the worst fucking gamers we know, probably. And people are going to have so much fun watching us suck at playing games.
Me watching God of War, I can tell you what it's going to be like. It's going to be like running into a wall of a mountain. I'm like, I can't get out. Like, how do I play this thing? I'm stuck.
That's exactly how I play. So you're going to have two of us doing the same shit.
Yeah.
I can't find you. Where are you? I'm trying to run to you. I think you're running into a wall. I think you're running into a wall.
Boomers playing games. Yeah, I can.
Is that a wall? I thought it was a cave. So I've been running down this cave for 20 minutes for nothing. It's not a cave.
And the reason I say that is because that's literally exactly what I did when I played Sonic Generations. Like, somehow I came into the 3D level, and I was like, I came into this freaking wall, and I couldn't get out of it. Like, I wasn't able to turn around, and like you're like meant to jump over it, but I freaking couldn't get the direction right and everything. So
I mean, I could barely play shit like Cobra Kai, right? I mean, I did finish that new Turtles game fairly quick, but that was real easy level tier shit. Like, you know, or like, because you can tell, like, okay, these guys are playing homage to like Nintendo and arcade games of the past, but it ain't nearly as difficult as those games were. We used a hell of a lot of quarters to get through Ninja Turtles, the arcade game.
Yeah, and of course I try some Conan Exiles, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a new Conan game at some point, so I'd have to try that as well. Although it's the same would be true if it's 3D, I'd suck to high heavens at that as well. But again, might be fun for that reason for everyone watching.
You can always watch, and then it's gonna just, you know, it's gonna de-evolve eventually into me playing Red Dead Redemption and just like tying people up and putting them on railroad tracks and crap. Right? This is seriously what's gonna end up being eventually. God King Dictator of South Africa sends in 14 South African rands and says they kept Raffi in 7 for Kurtzman's OG character quota.
I can believe that. I can believe that.
Yeah, I was gonna say
sounds extremely plausible.
I said something about it might have been contractual as to why she had to be around, but I don't know if they got lost in the mix of everybody talking. But,
I was thinking that too.
But even in that sense, usually the contracts only go one way, right? So in the sense that like if they don't want to use somebody, they don't have to.
But
They-
again, we have like we have an example of that. Like consider Constantine in Legends of Tomorrow, because the actor Matt Ryan, he was contracted for like a full season, and of course,
That's
if they were
true.
to write him out, they could pay him out, but they don't want to do that. So what happened was when J.J. Abrams basically put the character of Constantine into the freezer because he was doing his own Black Constantine project. The moment that happened, they could suddenly no longer use the character, but rather than to just pay out Matt Ryan's remaining contract, they just recast him into a different character. But he was still there, so you wouldn't have to pay him without him doing anything. So yeah, this.
Oh,
kind of
trust
like
me.
something similar.
There's a big part of me that hopes to. I was thinking of this. I'm sure it's all going to tie in somehow. Whatever it is she's investigating, undercover is going to tie into whatever Crusher was trying to stop or whatever. That whole thing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'm sure. But I was thinking to myself while I was watching, I'm like, it'd be really funny is if the side story that she's doing has absolutely nothing to do with anything else and could easily be cut out by a fan. Like Terry knew what he was doing.
That would be the best thing of all. Send her off in a wild goose chase. We never have to
exactly because okay, I'm contractually obligated to have this character in here. Fine. But I know I see what he's probably doing, and it's in a situation where look, you can pick up on this show, not seeing the first two seasons, and not be really lost because outside of needing to know, and you kind of get a good idea of who these characters are right away outside of Raffi. I mean, as of right now in the show, if you didn't see the first two seasons like Paul didn't, she's just kind of this mysterious character who's clearly doing some undercover shit for somebody. Either it's the Federation or whatever. So like, yeah. But anyway,
she's the one really annoying character because she's the one that breaks the illusion that this is like a season 3.0 in a sense. But yeah, moving on.
Yes, we have, let's see here. Next up, Perverted Jester, who says, off topic, where's the video that explains Mike and Elf already? Okay, I don't know if there is one that you're asking because we promised one or you don't understand what the joke is, but the short version of the joke, for those who don't know, we had talked about Elf because it was bought by, or the rights were bought by Shout Factory to release and rebroadcast the original shows, and they're working on some new stuff. And throughout the conversation, Mikey was real quiet. And at one point, somebody finally goes, well, what do you think, Mikey? He's like, I fucking hate Elf. So ever since then, we've been just ribbing about the fact that he hates Elf. So as he's learned the hard way, you shouldn't say you hate stuff, because then you get endless ribbings about it. And now we have the Elf emoji just for Mikey.
Yeah. So that was an earlier live stream. I don't know which one. If anyone knows.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't remember us promising a clip, so I think that's why he was asking. And Jonas again says, "You're killing me that I left before this conversation." I'm sorry, Jonas. Sorry.
Oh, I
You
shouldn't
could
have
have
left
stayed.
then.
Yeah, it's not our fault. You got a job. Of course, I'm kidding. It's not our fault, but I mean, I'm kidding about the job part. We know you got to work, man. Mr. Tickle Trunk says, some of us still don't listen to you, Tom. You're not you're not my real dad. Storms off in a huff, slams the door, turns Mead radio. I can't quit you. Well, the truth is we haven't got the DNA test yet, Mr. Tickle Trunk. When we get that done, we're in line to get on Maury, so we'll find out the truth soon enough. Hyperguyver 2 has become a new member. I have a feeling he just changed his membership level because I'm pretty sure Hyperguyver was already a member. But thank you. Speaking of members, actually, we have a time we've decided on for our membership stream this weekend, haven't we, Andre?
We do, indeed. Which is going to be on Sunday, and it's going to be around noonish Central European time. Exactly what that translates to around the world, I haven't done the calculations.
I believe it's roughly like 3 or 4 Central AM.
Something like that, yeah.
So in that area. So if somebody wants to do the translations, we'll definitely bring them up on stream. I'm sure Six is already doing it in her head. But yeah, that's when we'll be doing it. So around noon, Central European time, Sunday. Hope to see you members there. So more so for the members who are international and don't get a chance to join us on our regular member streams. That's why it's at an oddball time for those in America and some other parts of the world.
I think it's at 5 a.m. Central Time.
That could be about right.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6 says 5 a.m. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. I guess I'm staying up. So I'll see you guys then, all you members. And we do share that out on our Patreon and Mead members as well. And then Immortal Remus says, Star Trek Next Generation had the best and most nuanced episodes ever.
It did,
I mean, at this point, I would have to say, yeah, as far as improving on the original, yeah. King Dictator also writes in, Star Trek Discovery Episode 1 aired CBS, 10 million on CBS proper, airs okay to TV, to captive audience, lowest rated show on network TV.
Yeah, I remember this. That was fun.
Yeah. And then we've got Casperius here who says, I doubt Coca-Cola Bear will slaughter Ant-Man when it comes out, but we shall see. Yeah, it's a tall order, Casperius. It's an R-rated film. It'll be lucky to make more than 40 million at the box office, but it could surprise us. I think more of it, the reason I bring it up is because I think it has more to do with the fact that Ant-Man is going to tank in its second weekend because word of mouth is getting around. Like I was even calling shenanigans on the tomato rating because it was way high for the audience score. Now the audience score is starting to take a dump slowly, actually quickly if you think about it. So yeah, basically at this point we'll have to wait and see, but I think it'll be hilarious. We'll be talking about it Monday morning, one way or the other. When it comes to that,
yeah.
not this Monday, but the Monday after, obviously. It'll be interesting to see how this movie pans out too. Goku McDuck also says, Andre, your favorite Don Risota stories wants to know.
My favorite Don Rosa stories are the ones.
Sorry, Rosa. Did I say risotto? I don't even know why.
Yeah, the ones where he.
I think I'm getting
these are, of
hungry.
course, like the Uncle Scrooge stories. The ones where he kind of like messes with the fabric of space, time, and reality. I think those are brilliant. Like, for instance, the one episode where magic at the spell has like this thing that twists gravity so that you have to walk on walls and stuff like that. That was a great story. And also the one where the Bagel Boys have this stopwatch that doesn't stop time, but it just slows it down tremendously. That one was amazing. Of course, the life and times of Scrooge McDuck is tremendous. The one with this knight that has like this substance that melts away everything, so the substance goes down to the core of the earth. That was tremendous. Like most of his stories are really, really good, but those are the ones that stand out to me as my favorites.
There you go.
I don't remember their titles, but you will get it from the description.
All right. 70s Rock Fan is here and sends in $5 Canadian. Says, it wasn't until Tom took me under his wing on YouTube that I realized how good I really was. Bad Tom. Well, actually, I took you under my wing so you'd clean out my armpit. But, while you're down there, I guess.
Yeah.
We got Lily Von Stoop, who sends in a super sticker. Thank you, Lily Von Stoop. She's tired. Tired of being admired. And it's a Shiba Dog saying, good job, while raising his thumb up. If you haven't hit that thumb up yet, please do, because we're about to wrap things up here. After we get through Mecha J's super chat here, which is technically our last one, says, Picard Season 3 could also be another Andor. It's one of the better things to come out of Trek, but fans have been burned way too many times to watch. I understand where you're coming from, Mecha, and I think you're probably right. There's a couple of things that Season 3 of Picard has going for it. Yeah. Word of mouth, and the fact that more people are on Paramount Plus now than were probably since the last time any Star Trek has been put on there other than Strange New Worlds.
Also, it has another thing going for it.
What's that?
The Star Trek fan base was always much, much smaller than the Star Wars fan base.
Right.
Since it's a smaller fan base, this actually is a strength. it's easier for word of mouth to travel.
Yes.
With Star Wars, once you've lost the audience, once you've lost the masses, they ain't coming back. They're gone. They're gone. But the Star Trek fans, they're much smaller, and the percentage of real hardcore ones is all the greater. Word is going to travel, and more of them will be inclined to come back. Like, not all of them. You're never going to go back to the size of the fan base that was like 10 years ago. Or it's not going to be like the numbers that checked out the first episode of Discovery out of curiosity. That ain't happening. But it can still make a greater recovery than Star Wars can. It can be a bigger success than Andor was. I believe that to be the case, at least.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's what I think. That was kind of what I was getting at, basically, in a lot of ways. Yep.
Yeah.
It has a few things going for it that Andor did not. Not only that, Andor is, like, that's why I was, calling him Casio Keyboard for the longest time, because I couldn't remember his fucking name otherwise.
Yeah.
Without coming up with the nickname.
Yeah, exactly. And many people will never check it out because they've checked out of Star Wars, and they're not checking back in. Not until the sequel trilogy is removed from canon or something like that. And even then, they're not going to go back and check out Andor. So that is just done.
Picard, on the other hand, has a few other things that are going for it. So with that, I don't know if there was anything else we needed to cover.
No, with that, we are all good. So we'll be seeing you for membership stream on Sunday. Yeah. And check out the channel of all the members. And with that,
I'm sure I'll do some Mead Radio here at some point. Yeah.
Yeah. And otherwise, outside of Mead Radio, it's time for some koalas in the rain.
Koalas in the rain. Koalas in the rain. No fucks given. Koalas in the rain. Koalas in
Miguel Farah sends in a last-minute super chat saying, "Not even rained-over koalas can stand Star Trek Picard."